I would like to call the regular Temple City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Here.
Councilmember Fish?
Here.
Councilmember Mann?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist? Here. Mayor Yu?
I'm here. Next item is invocation. Tonight we're very happy to have Lynn Best from Westminster Presbyterian Church, located at 9642 East Live Oak Avenue. She will provide the invocation for this evening. Lynn has been attending Westminster Presbyterian Church since 1971. She's first ordained as a deacon in December 1973, served multiple 3 terms since then, having been re-elected in 2010, and just recently retired from the service. As she was ordained as an elder in December 2001 and served through 2006. And a side note here, once a deacon or an elder is a lifetime ordination within the denomination. And then right after the invocation, we'll have Troop 161 help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. And the Scouts presented colors are Spencer Chang, Anthony Hong, Manny Jimenez, Neil Chang, and Chris Dew. And tomorrow, Wednesday, Troop 161 will be making shaved ice at Temple City Concerts in the park. Thank you so much, to raise money for Scout campusship. The troop will be making and selling shaved ice at every Wednesday night from here on at the concert in the park and at the Temple City Park this summer. Thursday, June 23rd, the Troop 161 will be taking an evening hike from the Griffin Park Observatory area to the Hollywood sign for a spectacular view of LA. They are sponsored by Temple City Methodist Church, and they meet regularly on Thursday evenings from 7:30 to 9:30. They meet year-round, so all new Scouts are welcome at any time. So please rise, and Lynn will lead us with the invocation.
Thank you. Before that, Temple City Historical Society will be back in the park starting tomorrow night selling our candy and snack items, so please stop at our table. If you'll now join in silence while I read this prayer. Dear God, we gather here tonight as leaders of this community to work together for the betterment of Temple City and its citizens. Be with the leaders of our county, our state, and especially the current leaders in Washington. Guide them in their decisions that impact all the people in our country, regardless of race, color, creed, or ethnic origin. Protect all of your people who are suffering with the heat, especially those who lose electricity and have no means of getting to a cooling center. Protect those persons whose homes are in harm's way of the fires. Be with the first responders who are called on in times of need, especially the fires. And be with all of our military who are always in harm's way in protecting us from that harm. Lord, we ask you to be with all those who have worked hard on the summer concerts this year, the performers who come to our town to give us great music, and the folks who come to enjoy those concerts. And in this, we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, front and center. Color guard, forward march. Halt. Please prepare to post the flag of the United States of America. Please prepare to post the California flag. Please post the flag. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All those in uniform or veterans, please put your right hand over your heart. All others, please, all salute. All others, place your right hand all over your heart. Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
64. Color guard, retreat. Halt. Color guard dismissed. You may be seated.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you so much, Troop 161. Next item is ceremonial presentation. There is none. And next item is public comments on item not listed. We have two speaker requests. First, I'd like to call up Peter Choi.
Good evening, Mayor Yu. I'm Peter Choi, President of the Temple City Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff, and Temple Cityans. I am here with a delightful mission. It is my great pleasure to announce that once again, Temple City has been named one of the top 50 safest cities in America, coming in at number 38. It's for cities that are over 11,000 residents. And to identify the safest cities, they reviewed the most recent FBI crime report statistics, plus population data. And this city council, often here in the chambers, recognizes members of the community for outstanding achievements, but it's my great pleasure on behalf of Citywide to present this certificate to the city council, commemorating that Temple City once again repeats as one of the 50 safest U.S. cities. And I hope that the mayor and city council can take 30 seconds out of the busy proceedings tonight to accept this plaque and perhaps take a photo.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Choi. I guess I asked the council to join me.
Great, thank you very much. And our board chair, Ed Chen, will do the honors of and our fellow board members, Julie Hoymenya, Franklin Rudell, and Jim Alden.
Over by the podium, is what they're saying. And look here, please. Thank you. And thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you, Chamber, for the recognition, and a lot of that has go to our city manager, city staff, and in particular, our sheriff partner in keeping our city safe. Thank you. Put it up here. Next, I'd like to call Mr. Tony Scarduto, and he wants to speak on new animal licensing procedure. Good evening.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up and present my feelings before you. I have here two letters, and they're from the city of Temple City, and both, once was dated June 10th, the other was June 13th, and they're both kind of forcefully telling me that I have to get my dog licensed. And I thought, wow, if it's two letters, it must really be serious. So anyway, the new procedure now is apparently we go down to the Humane Society. So we went down there. Well, they closed on Monday, but we went down today, and it was kind of irritating because all the benches were filled up, There was no place, standing room only, and we were told we had to wait a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour before they could process our licensing request. And I thought, an hour for a $7.50 dog license? Give me a break. So anyway, for the past 30 years, we've been coming here to City Hall. The whole transaction takes about 10 minutes, and we walk out the door with the license, and everybody's happy. But there were people sitting on the bench, and there were 3 or 4 of them were for Temple City. And I'd asked them how long they'd been waiting, and a couple of them said they had waited at least a half hour, some of them 15 minutes. And then when I asked the lady what was the wait until you could get to process our request, she said it would be between 45 minutes and an hour. And I thought to myself, this isn't right. I need to tell you people about this. But more importantly, the main idea that came into my mind was that the San Gabriel Valley Humane Society does a very good job at what they were intended to do. And this was a prime example of the Peter Principle. It seemed like they got elevated into a position that they're not equipped to handle. And there's no reason why we should have to wait 45 minutes or an hour just to get our dog license. And I went on a Tuesday thinking, because they're open on a Saturday and Sunday, and forget it. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I've been there many times. Matter of fact, we've had pets for the last 30 years, and most of them were adopted right out of the Humane Society. But your system is broken and it needs to be fixed.
Okay.
Mr.
Well, you're up
Scott,
there. I have a question. Are all the licenses expire at the same time? Or, I mean, in other words, I got the same notice that Mr. Scaduto. I was wondering if he had less time to renew it than others.
Typically not unless it was some strange anomaly.
Because I mailed mine today. It's not due until August 28th. And so I mailed the check
I'm trying to
today.
deal with it as soon as I get it. So.
Yeah, because you have, if you have a long time to, I mean, they gave us over 2 months to renew, so.
Yeah, but to have to wait.
Well, I mean, you can, like I said, I mailed mine, I put it in the post office today.
We don't like doing that. We want to get it done.
No, I understand,
More
but
importantly, we
but
have
for-
our
I just
mail.
want to let other people know out there that it's
Right.
not required that you go down there personally. You can mail it in as well.
I understand, but for 30 years, we've come up
No,
here.
I understand that, and I appreciate it, and
Yeah.
I don't deny that you go down there, that's fine, but I just don't want people to get the impression that they have to go down there to renew it. They don't. They can
Right.
mail it.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
We're old school and we
No, I
take care of
understand.
business.
Okay.
Did they all go out?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for letting us know.
Did they answer that question? Did they all go out at the same time?
Next, I'd like to call up Mr. Stafford.
Mayor Yu, Mayor Pro Temper, Sternquist, council members, city staff. I live on a cul-de-sac, Nadine Street, and there's a street that comes off at Barella, and we got the Seventh-day Adventist Church there, and I've come upon this so many times, these people are just racing down the street to get into the church parking lot, or they park in the street and they park illegally. And it just seems like the last 2 or 3 weeks it's gotten out of hand. There's kids that live there on that street, and they don't pay attention to that. They just race in to find a place to park. They've been parking on my street now, and that never used to happen. And they park up and down Barella, sometimes in red zones and where they shouldn't park. And it's just their speed. They just come hauling around the corner off of Broadway without regard for anybody else. And I've had to back up to avoid getting hit. And I don't know if you guys can do anything to deal with this, but it's just gotten out of hand. And this has been a problem before about 15, 20 years ago, after I got out of high school, back longer than that. They were having accidents at Broadway and Barella because these people were just speeding in there and not thinking about anybody else. And at that point, they put red curbs in, and now it's back to the way it was. They don't even care about the red curbs. They just do what they want. And I'd just like to see something done to stop that before before they start having accidents again there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address the city council at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comments, and we will move on to the next item, which is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion as recommended unless removed for further discussion. Any items from? Nope.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
It is moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, so the consent calendar has been approved. Next item is public hearing tonight. The first item is adoption of resolution number 165171, approving a master fee and fine schedule for fiscal year 2016-17 and establishing new fees for parks and recreation programs. And
Mayor Yu, members of the council, thank you, Mayor Yu, members of the council. Tonight, we have several steps that we're taking related to the adoption of the budget. Some of them are perfunctory. Some of them are your policy direction related to the budget, we'll talk about in some more detail in a little bit. And this is one of those steps in that process, and Mr. Forbes will go over the fee schedule. If you remember, last year, you took the step of actually consolidating all prior fee schedules that were in separate resolutions. Now we have a master fee schedule, and consistent with that policy, step that we took last year, Mr. Forbes will update you related to the fees. There's no general fee increases going on. There are some new fees related to the new programming that we are expanding on, which we'll talk about with the budget just in a little bit. But with that, Mayor Yu, turn it over to Mr. Forbes.
Mr. Forbes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a pretty straightforward item this evening. A public hearing is required under the law whenever we establish or reestablish fees, so that's the reason for the hearing this evening. As Mr. Cook noted, this action would consolidate all of the various fees that we have into a single fee schedule. There are a handful of new fees that are proposed this evening for parks and recreation programs that are called out in the staff report. But aside from those new fees for a few programs, there are no changes proposed. All of the fees would be the same as what are on the books now, and there's no increases proposed for this year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Forbes, once we approve these fees, would they be posted on the city website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Forbes? No, at this time, I'd like to open for a public hearing. Anyone would like to address this item? Seeing none, I'll close public hearings. And any council comments?
Does he want to talk?
Oh, sorry, I'll reopen public hearing. Sorry.
I didn't even get time to get up before you shut up. And I didn't write up a piece of paper.
Yeah, anybody who would like to, by the way, anybody who would like to address the city council, please fill out these forms either before or afterwards. Yeah.
I have a
Mr.
simple
Riddell,
question. Do
go
these
ahead.
fees get posted before the public hearing or after the public hearing?
The fees
So
will
we know how you're moving in advance?
Yes, all of the fees are attached to the staff report, which was published on the website and available to the public before the hearing.
Before tonight?
Yes.
How long?
Whenever
Is there a time?
whenever the agenda is to be, the public notice of the fees was put in the paper 10 days or 12 days ago, and they would have been available on request from that time, but they were actually posted on the website on last Wednesday. So 6 days.
That presumes that this, people continue to look at the website.
Correct.
And I find that a...
Is there another place that you would like them to be? Is there another place that they would be available? They're
Well,
available at City Hall or on the
I think your paper idea is a good
website.
idea, but how often is the paper published? I think it's just once a month, isn't it? Or is it once every week?
Mayor Yu, we do what is legally required under the, in terms of noticing. We can take Mr. Riddell's comments and take them into consideration in the future, but we do what is legally required under the law in terms of proper posting, and the website is one of those locations where it is now considered appropriate to present those fees. But we always are willing to take the suggestions of the public about how we can do better. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do
Am
it
I
up,
correct that the majority of the fees, except for the new programs, have been in existence for quite some time.
That is correct, Mayor Pro Tem. The fee schedule that was presented to you, as Mr. Forbes presented, has not had any increases except for the new fees related to specific new programs that Ms. Burrows and the Parks and Recreation Department are proposing.
And I believe that might only be 2.
There's about 5 or 6, but they're related to the new programs that
They're all new.
Ms. Burrows and her team are doing this year, which we're all excited about as well.
But those that
Mr.
you're
Riddle,
talking
yes.
about, you said Parks and Recs, that's one of the things that are most publicly noticed by the public to begin with. And that's why I'm
All the
raising,
programs that people would have been enjoying,
yeah, that's what
none of those fees have been changed.
well, good, I'm glad for that. I just think that finding better ways of
Mr.
public
Riddell,
notice.
With all due respect, I think at some point in time, we have to, try and educate as much as we can, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. But there's always things that are coming on that we need to put onto the website. And that we
No
need-
argument.
Yeah, and that we need to put into the paper. So at some point in time, we have to continue to move on.
There are still some of us who work extremely long hours and if we took time for the website, what we do wouldn't get done.
Yeah.
That's why it's-
I work extremely long hours,
So-
believe it or not.
So
and-
I
and
believe you. So
Yeah,
I would
and
think you appreciate what I'm
I try
saying.
to do as much as I can to help myself be educated on that, but I'm just concerned sometimes that no matter what we try to do to
You're right.
educate the public, it never seems to be enough. And I
No,
guess
I
if I seem a little
concur with that
frustrated
thought.
with that, it's because this council has tried and the staff so hard to make sure that the public is aware of any changes and that we're so transparent. And I think at some point in time, I think we just need to be trusted that we are trying to be as transparent as possible and not hide any fees.
No, that was not the
And
intent.
I'm not saying that is the intent, but somebody could interpret that
Yeah.
that might be the intent.
No,
So-
that was not the intent that I tried to raise.
And I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Riddell. Anyone else who would like to address the city council regarding the fee? Okay, seeing none, so we'll close public hearing. And any council comments from anyone? No?
I just made a
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We're here now ready for council motion.
Mayor Yu, I'll move to adopt Resolution 16-5171, approving the master fee and fine schedule for fiscal year 2016-2017, and establishing new fees for several Parks and Recs programs.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
It's moved and seconded.
Yes,
Madam
Mayor.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes, so item 8A has been approved. Moving on to the next item, which is item 8B, adoption of resolution number 16-5178, ordering the levy of citywide lighting and maintenance district assessments for fiscal year 2016 and 17. Mr. City Manager.
Mayor Yu, thank you, and members of the council. Before you is one of those perfunctory items that we will be doing tonight, but does require some work and related to our landscape and lighting district. And let me reiterate on this. There are no changes to any of the assessment in terms of cost increases or anything that's being passed on to the public. So this is a perfunctory action, and as Ms. Haas will explain, this assessment has been around for decades, but there are no changes in terms of the assessment itself that are being passed on to the public. So with that, Ms. Haas.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Good evening.
This evening, we're doing a public hearing on, as required by the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. In 1979, the city formed a city lighting and maintenance assessment district and began levying assessments for street lighting, traffic signals, median maintenance, and park maintenance. In 1997, the city discontinued assessing for park maintenance as it was considered a general benefit and would be required of a vote under Proposition 218. An engineering report is required to be completed annually in order to continue the assessments, and the City Council ordered that report on February 16th. On May 17th, the City Council subsequently adopted another resolution declaring the intent to levy the assessments. Tonight is the notice of this public hearing, and it was advertised in the Temple City Tribune on June 9th, 2016. The assessments for the fiscal year 2015-16 and 16-17 remain unchanged from previous years. It is anticipated that these assessments will generate approximately $300,000. The current assessment does not cover all costs related to the required maintenance, and so gas tax funds have currently supplemented these expenses, and we're proposing the same for this next fiscal year in the budget that you're going to be looking at in a few minutes. That concludes my report, so I recommend that you open the public hearing, accept comment, and adopt the resolution. I'd also like to introduce that Mr. Pat Parrish is here from Harrison Associates tonight, who's prepared the engineering report, in case there's any further questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the council? No? Hearing none, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone's like to address this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public hearing and move on to council comments, if any. Seeing none, we're ready for a council motion.
I'll make a motion. I was gonna use the one that was up there.
Yes.
Adoption of resolution, no.
Sorry, that's the
Adoption of
next-
resolution number 16-5178, ordering the levy of citywide lighting and maintenance district assessments for fiscal year 2016-2017.
Second?
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes, so this item has been approved. And moving on to item 8C, which is adoption resolution 165177. Confirming, thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, confirming the factors used for calculating the annual appropriation limits for the fiscal year 2016-17.
Mayor Yu, members of the council, this is another perfunctory action, and
Yes.
the director will explain what that means and what we are complying with in terms of the state requirements as you take the next step in a future item to potentially adopt the proposed fiscal year 16-17 budget. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Do you
City
suppose
Manager.
that everybody understands the word perfunctory? I've heard that a few times. Does everybody out there understand what perfunctory means?
Routine, better. Thank you,
I
sir.
mean, it's a nice sounding word, but just to be.
I was watching too much Jeopardy or something.
It's a good word. Good Scrabble word,
Routine.
I guess. Routine, here you go.
Past Councilmember Viscara would appreciate that one.
Yeah.
I can hear him.
Good evening again. Boy, in 1979, the state was busy, and they passed Proposition 4, known as the GAN limit, to ensure that spending limits were placed on state and local governments on an annual basis. And in 1980, they adopted further statutes that requires each body adopt a resolution establishing the GAN limit annually. So staff has completed the computations and the adjustment factors, and the City of Temple City's limit for fiscal year 2016-17 is $19,352,152. And our appropriations in our budget, subject to the limitations, are just a little over 9,000, so 9 million, I'm sorry. So we are well within our threshold. So this evening, I recommend that we open the public hearing, receive input, close the public hearing, and then adopt a resolution. I'm looking at this is not the correct resolution number. Let me go back. Resolution number 165177 for the fiscal year appropriations limit. Yeah, I have it. Yeah. My PowerPoint has last year's. So it's
That's
fine.
all right.
You can go,
That's okay.
the staff
It's fine.
report's
Yeah,
correct.
we know. Yes.
Sorry about that.
So. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. How about one quick question? What's the purpose of this limitation? Is it just so that we don't spend beyond our means?
Well, the idea is that a limit of, needs to be calculated, a new threshold needs to be calculated annually. And it's based on a couple different factors. One is population growth within your city, and then also a CPI factor. So the idea was that, you know, your annual appropriations weren't growing at a faster rate than what made sense based on your population and based on CPI. So, and then not your whole entire budget is not subject to the appropriations or the appropriation limit. It's just primarily the proceeds from taxes. So we look at sales tax, obviously property taxes, all the tax related. So the idea was that, you know, a public agency doesn't raise taxes in a higher rate than inflation or increase in population. You know, it's a little bit, and you can see that, you know, since we're so far under our threshold, and most cities are, I've not seen anybody with a GAN limit, calculation problem. But, so it's a little bit, maybe a little bit antiquated, for lack of a better word, but it's still part of the law. It's part of our process that we have to go through, so.
So it's a perfunctory
Yes.
action before us, routine action before us. Okay. Any other questions from the council? All right. I'd like to open up for a public hearing. Anyone like to address this routine item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Any council comments? Okay, ready for a motion.
Mayor, you had proposed that we adopt resolution number 16-5177, confirming the factors used for calculating the annual appropriations limit for fiscal year 2016-2017.
Second.
So it's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes, thank you. So, moving on to the next big item, which is adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2016-17 city budget, and find that the city is in compliance with government code section 66,000. So, the city manager.
Mayor Yu, members of the council, I will take a few minutes and then I will transfer over to Director House to give you an overview of what you are being asked to consider tonight. First, this is the proposed fiscal year 16-17 budget. This is not a routine item. This is more, this is one of the biggest and most important policy documents that the council considers. And let me thank, first of all, the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, the City Council, and city staff for a real team collaborative effort in presenting this budget. This budget is not my budget. It's not any one individual's budget. It's the city's budget under your direction and under your policy direction. So thank you for that, and a great team effort by all. We are operationally balanced with this budget, and I'll talk about a few things of where we do have kind of long-term deficits. But I'm proud to present to you a budget that is operationally balanced. When we are presenting what we considered honestly an effective use of resources to deliver the programs that our community has come to expect and deserve. I'd like to again once more thank the finance staff for their hard work with this budget. The budget is one of the most important policy documents that the City Council does consider. It allows for the allocation of resources for the needed services, and it's the services that make Temple City a community worth living in. The budget is also a values document. It is a value-based document in terms of what services are important to the City Council and to the community in terms of why Temple City is a great place to live. Things like having a safe community, a clean community, a community with amenities that service our seniors, our youth, and a well-planned community. And all of those values are very much represented in this proposed budget. The budget also takes some effort from the prior budget with the prudent decisions that the City Council made with both conservative but thoughtful revenue projections and the diligent and efficient execution of policies, programs, and initiatives by the city staff. The city is in a strong financial position, and I'm proud to present that. But tonight's budget represents both a balance between strong reinvestment in the community while maintaining a fiscally responsible approach to services, programs, and infrastructure needs. And that's what makes it one of the most desirable communities in Southern California. One of the issues that we always tackle, though, is the issue of deficits within our infrastructure. And you're taking a big step this year, putting a small down payment with approximately $1.5 million worth of reinvestment in pavement rehabilitation along residential streets. The ad hoc took a significant amount of time in looking at that issue and making sure that we were using those resources in the most effective and efficient way, and talked about some of the issues that we have to tackle with those. But it will be one of the most significant investments that Temple City has made in several years on our residential streets. So coming in the next few months, even though it's a small inconvenience over a short period of time, the residents will see a lot of repaving of their residential streets over the next few years.
If I might just add to that, when the ad hoc looked at this item, it was reported to us that the price is right. Asphalt paving prices is really significantly lower this year, so we want to take advantage of that to make that investment. You know, it's kind of like you know, buying it at a very good price, so they will last longer. We'll go a longer way with our dollars. So.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to tweak that, and we will bring that count once, if approved tonight, if the allocation of funding is approved tonight, in the next couple of months, we will bring that item back to you with our city engineer and Mr. Forbes, and as we tweak that to try to, as the mayor pointed out, to bring the most efficient use of those funds.
Why is the asphalt cheaper this year than other years?
It historically is cheaper for a couple of reasons. One, oil is cheaper, and the demand right now within the market is dictating a relatively lower price than has historically been happened over the last 10 to 15 years.
You know, the experts forecast this to continue in that direction, or they just take it on a year-to-year basis?
In terms of forecasting that's always a challenge, but what we know is a snapshot in time right now, it's historically price per square foot. We'll be able to do a lot more with fewer resources than we were even 5 or 10 years ago.
And I'm assuming the product is still, even though we're getting it cheaper, it's still up to.
It's still up to snuff, and
yeah.
it is product, and we will have, as we did with some of the repaving you saw in the last couple of years, there are inspectors out there actually testing the material, looking at it. If you looked at some of the slurry seal that we did recently, it's almost even though it's slurry seal, it's almost like a cap, which it is holding up. We tested even after, this is 6 months after we've done our most recent repaving, and it's holding up extremely well.
And the streets that we're going to re-slurry, we'll be told ahead of time if there's any other markings that are going to go on there, correct?
This is not tied to any other funding source. This is Measure R money, which is discretionary money to be used on roadway rehabilitation projects. There is no other requirements that would be imposed related to that would require any other special markings or anything else that would be necessitated.
Perfect, thank you.
With that being said as well, we're taking some, we'll be tackling some issues related to the library and other reinvestments in the community over the next few years. Already ongoing is the walking trail that's going to go along Live Oak Park, the Veterans Monument. So some of those are carryovers into this year's budget because they blend between two fiscal years. So that we have a lot of exciting reinvestment going on in the community. But again, from a position of financial strength, city has a couple advantages. One, we're a contract city, which allows us some flexibility, and why, in fact, the council during several hours of deliberation over the budget and then one follow-up budget session asked us to take a look at enhancements to our law enforcement activities, including more motor patrol and a little bit more flexibility in terms of special operations that deal with residential burglaries and other things, and enhancements to code enforcement as well, to be a little bit more proactive with code enforcement. It's nice to be in a position where we have the resources to get that done. Again, one of the great achievements, I think, what we have in this year's budget is that we took a significant increase in our law enforcement budget, but we're actually adding more law enforcement services this year. So compliment to staff, compliment to you, the council, for having the foresight to budget properly in prior years so that we can have the ability to have the resources going forward. The 5-year strategic plan that was adopted a little more than 18 months ago dealt with a lot of the key values and what were the key initiatives that the City Council wanted to take on. Several of them included economic development, dealing with parking opportunities. This year's budget addresses and will be presented to you very soon, the opportunity at 5800 Temple City Boulevard to add some additional parking. Evaluate our own city-owned properties that we still own to look for potential parking opportunities there. This budget also continues the appropriation for the general plan and the zoning update as a key element. Parks and recreation and open space is a key element of our strategic plan, and I noted a couple of the interesting and exciting projects that are coming forward. We just talked about pavement management, which is considered one of our key initiatives in our strategic plan as well, and that we're making one of the biggest investments we've made in a long time related to residential streets. The areas of law enforcement strategy as well, and we talked about some of the additional appropriations. Last year, the council graciously gave us additional funding beyond the normal scope of what our traditional deployment looks like, and having extra deployment for a motor deputy to target. And you've seen during your monthly law enforcement meetings how effective that has been in terms of the amount of citations and enforcement we get from Deputy Baker. And also too, to allow us, and one of our assigned deputies is here protecting us tonight, doing our burglary suppression activities throughout the community. A couple of the other issues that we'll be dealing with as well is just typical good governance. We entered into a prudent, one of the areas you kind of have to tackle if you want to tackle a budget or if you're tackling a deficit is labor cost. And we entered into a 2-year agreement in a very prudent manner and with our bargaining unit partners to look at the long term. And one of the things that we're proud to present to you today is that we're presenting to you a budget and some of the long-term costs that we have a good handle on in terms of what we can handle today, next year, and the next year. And Ms. House will talk to you about our 5-year forecasting model. That is a model, and we'll talk about some of the assumptions that go into that model. But give us some reasonable assurance. You can't predict the future 100%. We don't have a crystal ball. But we have some reasonable assurances that these are things we can afford in the future, and we're prudently planning for those. So with that being said, Mayor Yu, I will turn it over to Tracy to follow up with just a summary of the many hours that you spent deliberating over the budget over the last month. And we are here for any questions that you have. So Mayor Yu.
Director House.
Thank you, City Manager Cook. As you recall, the city charter does require that we adopt an annual budget. And as City Manager Cook said, the Budget Ad Hoc Committee spent quite a few hours going over the budget in detail on 2 separate meetings. On May 31st, the entire City Council met to review the budget with a pretty lengthy overview and individual presentations from the departments. On June 7th, a second study session with the City Council was held to follow up with any questions. And then tonight, we're recommending that you adopt the fiscal year 2016-17 budget. Sorry, technical difficulties these evenings. Thank you. Our new computer that we just got for the council chambers. Notable trends: revenues are not growing quite as quickly as expenditures. but we are addressing that with prudent budgeting. Operations is balanced with a slight surplus. As City Manager Cook indicated, the sheriff's contract represented the most significant increase, and the budget still remains somewhat dependent on residential real estate market and residential development. But again, we're keeping a close eye on any changes in those revenue streams that may occur. How we balanced operationally, we made adjustments from last year's budget, carrying resources forward, and staff continued to identify cost savings where appropriate without decreasing services. The total revenue in this budget this evening is almost $20 million. I've also broken it down between our general fund, or our general operating fund for the city, that covers most of the types of services that are most transparent to the public. That budget is $13.7 million. Revenue sources is $13.7 million. Transportation-related funds is a little over $4 million. And again, this is where a majority of the funding is coming from for our pavement management activities this year. The lighting and landscape maintenance is approximately $1.2 million, and that also was addressed this evening earlier when we held the public hearing on assessment fees. Our CDBG funding, a little over $300,000, and then other miscellaneous funding sources of almost $500,000. Our total expenditures for this budget is operations is $17 million. Equipment is $60,000, and our capital projects are about $5.2 million. And I've provided a breakdown of the types of projects that we're going to be looking at: parks, facilities, Temple City Boulevard safety improvements, which does include signals, pavement management activities, which Brian Cook touched upon, parking facilities, and then other miscellaneous projects. The general fund, again, the most significant operations where most of the services are provided that are apparent to the public. We're estimating that we will end this fiscal year, June 30th, 2016, with about $4.5 million in unassigned fund balance. And again, we have looked closely at our revenues and expenditures since we're almost to the end of this fiscal year. We anticipate an operating surplus, a significant operating surplus, and we will be starting the new year with unassigned fund balance of $4.5 million. That brings us into this proposed budget year. Our revenues are $13.7 million, our expenditures $13.6, with an operating surplus and surplus of about $78,000. Again, there's additional enhancement in public safety and in the code enforcement area, along with other service areas. We propose equipment and capital items of a little over $400,000. I am showing the library expansion in this analysis. While the council has not taken formal action to appropriate the funds, we know it's an important project, and I think it's important to have that reflected in tonight's presentation. So, assuming that the library expansion goes as planned, we will end up with an estimated fund balance next June 2017, with almost $2.3 million. Just a quick presentation on the equipment and capital items that we're going to be looking at. Some of these are carryovers from last year. We didn't have financial resources, but more or less not having the time to complete these projects. So we are proposing that we carry them over into the new year. Significant, all of them are important, but the upgrade of the traffic street signage and senior master plan and city hall space planning project are also included. Now, we talked about the unassigned fund balance. We're going to talk about the reserved fund balance, which is also significant. So, as you recall, a number of years ago, the council took action to set up reserves for a variety of different allocations or uses. I've outlined the reserves that the council has previously taken action on and reported to you. What we anticipate these reserve fund balances to be at the end of fiscal year 2017, in other words, next June. So even after we've done the spending that we propose, we're still going to anticipate having significant reserves of about $16 million, which is about 120% of our general fund. So again, I've outlined those for you, and again, I want to point out the undesignated of 2.2, which also includes the library expansion.
So to put that into some context again, say that everything fell apart in the city and we had Armageddon. We would have enough money to operate with no taxation, no nothing for one whole year and beyond. It really puts us in what I talked about earlier, us being in a strong financial position, and why we can make the types of investments in the community that we can is because of one of the things is that we have and continue to have a strong fund balance carrying forward, even with the investments that are being proposed and with the investments that are going forward today.
I also wanted to point out that part of our proposed budget took into consideration the 5-year strategic plan. There is a lot more detail in the areas that we're going to be working on, contained within the strategic plan, and the staff report, quite extensive actually. But just to remember our goals identified: good governance, public health and safety, quality of life, sustainable infrastructure, economic development, and citizen education and communication. Unfortunately, I apologize, our fiscal health diagnostic tool is an online tool, and unfortunately, the particular browser I have tonight on this machine is not letting me pull it up. Let me pull it up about half an hour before the meeting started, but then decided not to. But you've seen that fiscal diagnostic health graph prior, and it has not changed. And I will have that. I can produce I'll print out the graph and have it included in some of the budget material that we put online, so it'll be available to the public. But I can address with you some of the assumptions that we made in that 5-year plan and beyond. We have included all salary and benefit increases in accordance with the adopted MOU with the Employee Association. We are budgeting for a 10% increase in CalPERS rates over the next 5 years, which might be a little bit conservative, but we all know CalPERS rates are constantly climbing, and we want to be prepared for that. 10% in the next year increase in medical premiums. Overall, across the board, generally speaking, about a 2% increase in operating costs, and the CPI from May to May is 1.5%. So again, a little conservative, but again, we can plan for anything unanticipated that might arise. And our estimates for revenues are conservative, generally 1 to 2%. A little bit higher in the area of property tax, because as we've seen, our values in town have certainly increased, and we're seeing more property tax. And then, of course, we're monitoring and keeping close tabs on the residential development revenues, such as building permits, plan checking fees, which we're seeing a much higher increase in that from 1 to 2%, but we're trying to, budget for the actual activity. But again, that's something that we watch very closely and revisit it at least every 6 months, because it is a major revenue source to us. Any questions? If you have any questions, and I have for you tonight the recommendation: open the public hearing, receive input, close the public hearing, based on any public comments, direct staff to make any changes if necessary, and then adopt the resolution before you.
Any question from the City Council? Okay. Yeah, we have had 2 study sessions, and so we've been asking a lot of questions. So this time I'd like to open it for public hearing. Anyone like to ask any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Jambasian.
Good evening, Mayor, you and council members. Jerry Jambasian. This is the first time seeing it tonight, but can somebody enlighten me a little bit about the senior master plan? what that is about?
Mayor Yu, if it's okay, if
Yeah, please.
Ms. Burrows can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This actually came about at the request of our Parks and Recreation Commission. As we know from our previously adopted Parks and Open Space Master Plan, the only segment of the community that is expected to grow over the next 20, 25 years is our older American population. There have been a lot of significant changes with older adults over the years, with baby boomers retiring. So the master plan, the senior master plan, would be a comprehensive study of a lot of areas for our older adults, our seniors, not only recreation, but housing, medical, transportation. It would be a lengthy study that would be looking at how we can enhance the quality of life for the seniors in our community.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to ask any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Any council comments?
I'll make some brief comments.
Okay, Councilmember Min.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank Mayor Yu for your leadership on the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, as well as staff for answering all the questions that we kept throwing at you. The budget is an extraordinarily complex document, but because of the help of staff as well as all the council members who are more senior or veteran than I am, I've learned a lot from that process. And I really think it's important to understand, and as City Manager Cook has said, that the budget really reflects the values of the city. And as City Manager Cook has gone through the list of all these projects, you can see where we're investing and why we feel the investment is important. And I just want to briefly touch on the pavement management activities that you've mentioned. We've talked a lot about leveraging our resources. The library is a primary example. We have these reserves, we have these different funds, and a lot of it is about timing, right? You have the opportunity kind of opens up, and like the library, we have the opportunity to invest in it, to put in $1.95 million and get about $4 million worth of projects. And correct me if I'm wrong, City Manager, but the past projects that we did on El Monte and Arden, all the resurfacing, that came under the engineer's estimate. Was that correct?
If not close to right at about, but yeah, in some cases we were able to expand because the pricing came in favorably.
Right.
So you're correct.
And so I think that just shows that there's a good deal of flexibility that we're able to exercise. If the price is right, we can take advantage of it. And so I'm hoping that with the $1.5 million that we've allocated, we can perhaps get more than what we've anticipated. And yeah, and I think moving forward, it's a good plan going forward. So thank you.
Right, thank you. Anyone else like to make comments? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, I just want to add just one minor thing. I think that Director Housen mentioned and discussed the reserve fund balance. Some folks may be a little worried, how come our reserve fund just keep going down year after year after year? And I think it is really the reason why why we formulated the reserve policy is to make sure that our services, like Mr. Cook has explained, will always be sustained even in a really, really dire economic crisis. But yet, at the same time, I think the budget also reflects this council and also city staff's recommendation that we should invest in our community instead of just putting it away in the bank, doing nothing. So we want to be strategically be investing back into in our city. Pavement management plan is one of the great example. The library, we haven't had a chance to really improve on our library, so we want to take advantage of matching funds from the county. So we want to invest. That's why we're not really spending down our reserve. We're actually strategically investing in our city. So with that, I'm ready for a council motion.
Mayor Yu, I'll move to adopt resolution number 16-5180, adopting the proposed fiscal year 2016-2017 city budget and making the finding that the city is in compliance with Government Code Section 66000.
All right, do you have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes, thank you. So the budget has been adopted and passed. So next item, item E, is an appeal of Parks and Recreation Commission's decision to remove 2 Siberian elm trees located in the public right-of-way at 6034 Muscatel Avenue. Mr. City Manager? staff
Mayor,
report.
you, members of the council, under the municipal code, there is allowance for an appeal process for the removal of trees in the tree ordinance that was adopted several years ago. Director Burrows is in charge of our urban forest and will give you a overview of the issues that are being brought to you tonight.
Director Burrows.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Yu and City Council members. As indicated, the item before you tonight is an appeal of the Parks and Recreation Commission's decision to remove 2 Siberian elm trees located in the public right-of-way at 6034 Muscatel Avenue. Just a brief history of how we've gotten to this point. On April 13th of this year, the property owner at 6034 Muscatel was notified of the city's intent to remove the 2 Siberian elm trees pursuant to Section 3-4D-9A of the Temple City Municipal Code, which states the criteria for removal. Number 5 allows trees to be removed if they are obstructing curb, gutter, or sidewalk repair, or in the way of a new curb, gutter, or sidewalk for which an exception to standard design is determined to be inconsistent with established policies and standards. On April 26th of this year, Mr. Mark Enkelar submitted a notice of appeal to the city, appealing the removal of the trees to the Parks and Recreation Commission. On May 18th, the Parks and Recreation Commission considered the appeal at their meeting and upheld staff's determination to remove the trees. On May 31st, Mr. Enkelar submitted a notice of appeal to the city clerk, appealing the Parks and Recreation Commission's decision to the city council. The property owner at 6034 Muscatel has been developing their property with a new home. Installation of sidewalks is now a standard condition of approval for all new single-family residences. To conform with Government Code Section 65302B2A, the city's draft general plan includes a policy requiring the city to provide adequate and well-maintained sidewalks to allow residents of all ages and abilities to walk in a safe and accessible manner. This policy has been reviewed by the General Plan Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, as well as the City Council. The Siberian elm trees at 6034 Muscatel will interfere with the proposed sidewalk improvements. The city engineer has reviewed the plans and inspected the property to determine if the sidewalk could be rerouted to accommodate the existing trees. However, due to the size and location of the trees, he determined it is not feasible without encroaching either into the street or onto private property. This is a photograph of the existing, the trees with the home being built. It's a little further along now. This is a picture looking north on Muscatel. As you can see, there are sidewalks to the south of this property, however, not to the north.
Now, that photo was taken quite
This was taken,
before,
yes,
correct?
yes.
Because that's the
This-
house that used to be there.
This is a 2015 Google map. And this is looking south. Again, as you can see, there are some sidewalks, but not throughout. One of the things we wanted to tell the commission is, irregardless of whether there are sidewalks on the whole block, the policy is to install sidewalks with the, I guess you might say, hope or expectations that eventually we will have a sidewalk in most blocks. The Siberian elm trees at this location are between 45 and 60 feet in height. They are determined to be in fair condition by West Coast arborists. Staff has recommended that 1 new tree, an Australian willow, be planted after the sidewalk is installed. Our city arborist, Rob Cruz, who is here tonight if there are any questions, looked at the location and felt that it was best to only install or replant one tree and not two. There was not enough room for two trees. By removing...
I have a real short question on that, if you
Yes.
don't mind. In looking at the photos, there appears to be two trees there now. I'm a little confused as to why staff has determined, or how they reached their conclusion that it was not adequate for more than one tree, since there are two trees there now.
I can try and answer it, but if I'm wrong, Rob will certainly correct me.
All right.
There's a couple things. The different species of trees, the Australian willow may grow larger or may not. I'm not sure on that. But if you look at them, some of these trees are pretty close to the driveways. There's also, with the new construction, we have to worry about the meters and where the water and the sewer lines are coming in. We don't want to put them where they're going to be interfering with those.
So are the new trees?
We also have an issue with, not an issue, we also try not to plant trees right in front of the front door any longer. As you can tell, it looks like, at least on one of these, it is. So there's a lot of things we look at when we're looking at putting trees in, and it's not just necessarily if there are two trees there, we can put two back in.
I have a question.
We're looking at a lot of the other issues as well.
And are the trees going to, like, looking at this photo you have up here, I'm assuming that the sidewalk that's currently there will continue on along that curve in the same width? Is that
I don't
correct?
have the building plans, and Mr. Forbes has left. I believe that is the case.
That is the intended plan, but
So won't the tree is going to be replanted on the homeowner's property or on the city property?
Well, the right-of-way in that area is, I believe, 10 foot.
10 feet.
The sidewalk is probably 4
Okay,
foot.
well, that answers the
So
question.
we do have right-of-way beyond where the trees are right
Yeah, I
now.
can see right above it, it looks like, where those hedges are, it looks like about 10 feet.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
We have one more question.
That was my answer, my
Oh,
question. I want
right.
to know if it was on city.
Okay, great. Continue, please.
By removing or replacing older mature trees with new trees when deemed appropriate, the city continues to repopulate and diversify our urban forest. In the staff report, I quoted a USDA, United States Department of Agriculture report that was specific to Temple City. They also looked at, I believe, 29 cities in California and ranked their urban forest. They recommend that no more than 10% of your urban forest is older declining trees, 20% mature trees, 30% semi-mature trees, and 40% juvenile trees for an ideal urban forest. Temple City's urban forest, when the report was done in 2011, was comprised of 50% mature trees, 35% semi-mature, and 13% juvenile. So one of the recommendations was to begin planting new trees when we're taking out the older ones. Finally, with the likelihood of additional sidewalks being constructed throughout the city over the next several years as new homes are developed, it is anticipated that additional trees may need to be removed. Planting new trees in those areas will also assist us in repopulating our urban forest. That concludes my staff report. The City Council is requested to open the public hearing, receive input, and uphold the Parks and Recreation Commission's decision to remove the 2 Siberian elm trees and plant 1 Australian willow.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
In the report, it's noted here that the trees are in fair condition. What is the scale? What is fair?
I can tell you
Is there
what...
something wrong with the tree?
I'm going to let Rob answer that. Let me give you what West Coast has given us as their definition of fair. The tree is healthy in most respects, but may appear stunted in comparison to other trees. Past maintenance, such as topping, may have caused some weakened structure. So there could be some things wrong with it. Rob has inspected it and has determined.
Okay.
So fair, I mean, it's not in its healthiest condition. It would probably be a little bit of a decline maybe, with some signs of that, a little bit of dieback, maybe where the tree would be really luscious. It's showing signs of maybe going a little bit the other way. They are fairly healthy. I mean, that's.
Okay. All right. So they're not in great condition.
Yeah, they're not in great.
But yet they're not dying.
Yes.
Okay.
One additional question. If you're in an ideal situation, how far do you space the Siberian elm?
Well, the canopies would be, the drip line would probably be around, I would say probably about 40 feet. So, somewhere between 30 and 40 feet. So that would give you a little bit of room. You don't really want the canopies going together because you could die back in the middle. It's better to have the tree have its own space. The tree would be healthier. Those, they're doing pretty well with, by just barely touching each other. But, it's the thing really, I think, is to put two trees back is just with all the requirements where you have the driveway, you don't want to be too close to the driveway and have it damage to the driveway apron. The front door is a little bit of an issue. We want to make sure we're not planting in front of the front door. And then wherever the meters are going to be is another thing that we have to take into consideration.
Do you know if the meters are going to be moved from their current location, or we don't know
Yeah, that I'm not sure of.
And it doesn't appear from the photos that you provided that the trees are causing any damage or uprooting of the street or side or the curb or anything like that. Is that
No, they are. There is no curb or gutter damage. The thing is with the 5-foot sidewalk, it's going in. It does go right next to the trees.
Yeah.
So it would, and then the trees, where the grade is for the trees, it is lifted because of the age of the trees. So that also would be not too good because if you put the sidewalk up next to it, you're going to actually expose part of the root system for it will dry out.
When was this photo taken? Do you know?
Those, I think I took those pictures. Kathy,
The one that's on the screen now, because
I think that was.
that tree doesn't look like it's doing too well.
Well, right, they're
Look at the trees surrounding it. They all have green leaves, and this is like.
No, it's just dormant.
bare.
It's dormancy. So it was,
Okay.
it was in, somewhere between October and probably January.
Okay, so that was October.
Yes.
Yeah, that looks like
that's
an October
during the
tree.
dormancy, yeah.
All
The
right.
other tree, the other pictures, you can see all the leaves that are on the tree.
Okay, all right, just
Oh,
want to
there
make
you
sure.
go.
So if we were to go
Yeah.
out there and take a look at it now, it wouldn't look like that?
There are leaves on the tree.
Okay.
For you.
I have one last question here. Now, with the Australian willow that we're proposing, would it provide a similar width of canopy, given it's not competing with another tree?
No, it's gonna grow to about, I think, in the street tree book, it says about 40 feet tall and about, it's something like 30 to 40 foot canopy. So you're gonna lose the canopy for sure. You know what I mean? Right now, you probably have at least 60 foot of canopy, maybe more. But one tree's it's not gonna do the same thing that the other two trees are doing. Plus, the Siberians also grow taller, like into the 60-foot range.
And Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding that even though the city is planting that tree and it's in the public right of way, that the owner of the property will be expected to take care of it and water it?
Well, that's what's been the procedure, because they're redeveloping the property. Otherwise, we wouldn't be taking the tree out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, it would be just, we would try to keep it as healthy as long as we could.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one more thing.
Yeah, one more question.
And Rob, can I assume that you work with the property owner with the placement of it, as far as sprinklers and
Yes.
everything else?
Yes, usually when they call me. Now, planning's getting more involved with calling me out before and after. So we're trying to place the tree in the right spot, so we're gonna have a lot less problems.
Yeah.
A lot less hardscape damage, problems with meters, driveways, sidewalks, front doors, everything that we.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Do have another question, Mr. Cruz? Actually, a couple. Do you know if the homeowner is planning on planting more trees in the front yard, other than the?
On that particular property, I did not see the plans. I am seeing the plans on a lot of the properties now, because we are sometimes recommending not planting a tree. If they're planting 2 or 3 trees right on the edge in the front, it's not gonna do good for us to put a tree in there and try to get it to grow. But in this case, I haven't seen the plans on this
Yeah.
one, so I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cruz.
So if they are going to, though, you would probably have a different recommendation as far as putting this tree in?
Well, it could be, yes, because I've seen a couple properties where they're planting. I saw one, I think, where they're planting at least 3 pretty good-sized trees, which was taking up almost most of the property line, at least to where the city property was at.
But that issue really isn't what's at hand tonight. The issue is putting the sidewalk in and
Yeah,
in relationship to where these
Yeah, I
trees
don't-
are.
I
From my
don't believe
standpoint-
they are. recommending new trees, at least not close to the public right-of-way.
Right.
Otherwise, the Community Development Department, I don't think would have recommended that we look at putting another tree in.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Thanks, Rob.
Any other questions from council? Yeah, please, Mayor Pro Tem.
If you look to the right of the two trees, so west, there's,
South.
well, I'm trying to find, there was a picture in our staff report where the next sidewalk is on
Yes.
the next property, isn't it?
Yeah,
This way?
that's what, yeah,
Hold on.
towards near us.
It's frozen.
Yes.
Not where it's going in, but next door neighbors.
Yes.
This one?
This one.
Yes. So that is east of it
This is south.
South.
or south?
We're looking north.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because I know we have a hodgepodge in our city of areas where we have sidewalks and then there's no sidewalks. When did we decide that we were going to have sidewalks when new developments came in?
Prior to myself and Mr. Forbes being here, it was the policy to implement, to create more sidewalks throughout the city and correct conductivity with the sidewalks. So when new development of this scale does occur, or complete redos of, or complete reconstruction of houses, there's usually an effort to install more sidewalks where possible and to try to complete the conductivity of those sidewalks throughout the city.
But unless all the other
Well,
properties, for example, on my street, had the house across the street been developed as a new development, they would have been the only, in the middle of the block, the only home with a sidewalk. Where's the connectivity there? It seems disjointed, if anything, to me. So when I look at taking out trees to put in a sidewalk that is not really connected to another sidewalk, I'm just wondering if that's a really good policy that we have in place, that you have to put a sidewalk in, instead of saying you look at the development and see how it is going to connect with the neighbors on both sides and across the street. I'm just kind of throwing that out there because it actually makes no sense to me.
1, 2.
I have a question.
The staff report isn't really quite clear on that issue. All it says is that if and when those properties are redeveloped, sidewalks would be required. There's no cite to any code section or any kind of,
Okay.
rule that requires that. It's a little ambiguous. I would also like to know a little bit more about what that policy is.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist, and she brings up a good point that, if you have a street in the middle of the city that has no sidewalks and somebody decides to develop a new piece of property and now you have a sidewalk in front of one house and that's it.
Yeah.
Probably look a little weird.
And we do have that in some areas right now.
Well, and I don't know if that's the right thing. I mean, that seems to be.
And I wish I could answer the question. I got this information from Community Development, and I don't know if Mr. Murphy or even Councilmember Mann were on the General Plan Advisory. My understanding is this was a recommendation from the General Plan Advisory Committee.
Well, I don't have the answer necessarily, but it's very, very common in most cities for any new developments to be required to do a couple of things. If they're street widening, let's say the street, currently is 30 feet and they want to go to 36, it will require the homeowner to expand. So we'll give the extra width to build the new curb and sidewalk and widen the street for the city. And so the whole point is that you improve as you build. So over the years of 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. Hopefully, when the housing stock get turned over, because houses don't last forever generally, and so the cities would have infrastructure put in by the homeowner at the homeowner or new developer's expense. However, there are other jurisdictions that might have adopted, and to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, they have chosen to collect money and put that in a fund and hold it. And then the city would at some point be either do the street widening or do sidewalk improvements. But I don't know if we actually have a policy in our city that actually to address that. In particular, we do have a policy currently to address repaving of the street and we do collect a fund that's putting a pot of money for future paving on the street, but I don't think we have such a thing for sidewalks at this point.
Has anybody asked the
Okay.
owner what they want?
Well, I
see
think they
that she
said-
came to the
Are they here?
Parks and Rec.
She is here.
Is she here? She came to the Parks and Rec Commission, excuse me. I'm not really quite sure what it means here, but she expressed concerns that a mature tree with established roots will cause problems to their plumbing and also crack the sidewalk. So, I don't know, it sounds like she's
That was in
favor of keeping it
reference-
there, but not in favor of having it there.
That was in reference to another property she owned in Pasadena.
So this does nothing to do with this property?
She also owns a property in Pasadena, and she was concerned because there was a large tree there that is causing problems, and was concerned that these trees may cause problems as well.
Okay. Well,
I have
is she here to maybe tell us what her feelings are about? I'd like to hear from her as well.
Can I finish my
We'll ask
We'll
for
get to
that
that
one
point
at
in a
that
minute,
time.
but-
Maybe let's hold on for a minute, because we still have addressing council questions.
Okay, I have a question. While you were talking, I looked up my house online, and I have two brand-new houses that were just built within the last 2 years, and neither one of them have sidewalks. They're right across from me, right across the street from me. So is there some kind of and there's no big trees or anything. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think the city put a little tiny tree. So is there some kind of consistency if it's a brand-new project? Because these two I know were brand-new projects.
I believe what I was told by the community development staff was they could pay a fee instead of putting the sidewalk in. I'm not 100% sure because
Okay, that doesn't sound
it's- I apologize, but I got the wording from the community development staff.
But I have to say that, though, besides this house, and why I do acknowledge the question, why we're just doing this one house. To the south of this property, there are two other properties already put in the sidewalk. So it's not like it's just an isolated, there'll be like
there's two north
3,
and
4
south.
houses. Yeah.
My concern is that you take a city like South Pasadena, a small city.
That's what I'm saying, are we being consistent?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You were still.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
But
say like South Pasadena,
Yeah,
you were
you
saying.
take a city like South Pasadena where, you know, they would argue that those homes that were built in 1900 are gonna be there for another 200 years, and they want them to stay. And a lot of places in Pasadena, Bungalow Heaven, where our city manager lives also. So I think you can't really, we can't go on a wing and a prayer thinking that our whole city is going to be redeveloped and everybody's going to put,
Well, cities that
sidewalks
do
in.
that require that, and you may have a hodgepodge of patchwork. The city generally will come at certain point and improve the entire street. And we did that actually when we did Rosemary Boulevard. We actually continued some of the sidewalk. We took out the ones that are in compliant, there's one that didn't have them, we added. So now that we finished Rosemary Boulevard, the sidewalk's going up and down.
so
the
maybe
entire boulevard.
we're gonna have a senior master plan, we have a sewer plan. Maybe we need a sidewalk plan, because it doesn't seem like we have a plan for how we're going to address sidewalks moving forward in our city with we think we're requiring, and we're not really sure, are we requiring them, or
Yes.
we are?
Yeah.
For new development?
Yes.
No
Yes.
matter what the size of the development is. Single-family homes required, like, to put a sidewalk. So, but do we have a sidewalk plan in somewhere that says
There's not a
how-
sidewalk master plan per se, but there is the idea of trying to create more sidewalks where they don't exist today.
Yeah, and also, I might add that it's also part of the requirement for ADA access is for to provide wheelchair access as much as possible. So we as a municipality needs to provide that, because that would mean that somebody will have to at least cross the street to use the sidewalk on the other side, so.
But you bring up a new issue, that doesn't, along those same arguments, wouldn't ADA then come along and say, look, you gotta have sidewalks all the way, I don't care.
It-
Let's start putting sidewalks in the whole city. That's the argument
Then you
that,
have to go
that
out
would
and
make. And
off the
what
Yeah,
would stop
but
them
as
from
a
doing that?
as a municipality, we're only required to slowly implement that. We're not required.
I don't know that that's, you think that's really
Yes,
the term?
yes.
Slowly do it?
Well, it's Title II of the ADA has a different requirement,
Well, I
Title
think-
III of the ADA.
I personally think there are a lot of answers that have been brought up tonight that we can't answer here tonight. I think we need more information. I, for one, would like to
I agree.
have more input regarding what is the policy of the city? What are the ADA requirements, for example? I think there's more to it than just, what we have here. Frankly, I'm reluctant to make a decision without that kind of information. I think we don't have enough at hand to make a full, intelligent, informed decision tonight.
Well, if I may, in page 2 of the staff report, it says to conform with Government Code Section 65302B2A, the city's draft general plan includes a policy requiring that the city provide adequate and well-maintained sidewalks along all city roadways to allow residents of all ages and abilities to walk in a safe and accessible manner. This policy has been reviewed by the General Plan Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and the City Council.
So are we not following it since we're not putting sidewalks in all over?
But it doesn't.
But we did, again, we don't have the financial capacity to put in sidewalks everywhere. So one,
I think
as,
she's talking about the two neighbors that just had new developments.
so
and
there
no
is
sidewalks.
the ability for somebody to deposit funds, and over time, we would try to implement and install those sidewalks over time.
Would they be specific to those
When you deposit,
properties?
not necessarily always, but the intent is to.
So do we have a fund somewhere that these?
There's not a separate fund like the other funds that you have that have specific designated dollars to that. They are accounted for on their own, but there's not a separate fund that only ties down that funding. It's the intent to do that, though.
Okay, I'm not really quite sure I understand, but, so if let's say we collect money in lieu of putting a sidewalk, who keeps track of that money? Where does it go, and when will it be used, if at all? And for what reason?
We do track the use of those funds over time, but it's not, for lack of a better term, it's not in a separate funding category, but we do track that funding as we do with the other funding that we ask for off-site improvements if we enter into a development agreement with a developer or anything else. But again, it comes back to financial capacity to do what we're asking to do. And it is not uncommon, as Mayor Yu has pointed out, for cities to take different approaches and use a hybrid of approaches to deal with a sidewalk installation. Now, if this is something that the council wants to have a broader discussion about so that it's clear with the council and then translate that into clear in terms of a broader plan to deal with that, I think that's where we as staff are happy to bring that back to you and have that discussion.
The section that Councilmember Mann pointed out refers to the city's draft general plan. So is that something that's in place, or is that something that's coming?
That's something that is coming, even though you've seen and have been reported back to you in terms of some of the elements of that draft general plan.
But it's not law,
No.
so it doesn't really have any bearing on what we're doing here, other than just, I don't know, hopeful times. This is our goal, but it's not mandatory, of course.
No, sir.
I have a question. I'm going to bring up a can of worms. I've actually never heard of being able to pay a fee so that you don't have to do something that is regulated by the city.
Well, we have in lieu fees.
Yeah,
a lot of
we've
different
done that
things.
a lot.
Is there other fees as far as construction that you can do that?
We don't have, for some of the fees that you, and some of the developments that you've occurred, and the one that strikes me right away is Linden Walk. There was a development agreement that was struck that would allow the city to negotiate with the developer on how those fees and what the nexus between the public benefit would be, if it be sidewalks, public art, whatever those things may be, tied to that. In terms of specific policy direction related to that, there isn't anything specifically cleared out other than what the staff report points to as maybe some of the intent of that, but there's nothing specifically spelled out related to that.
We do typically collect money for repavement of the vehicular half to the middle of the street for all new buildings.
The pan?
Yeah. So you can choose to repave it, or you can put money and pay a fee to the city. That's for all our projects. Right. And then we also have, I think in downtown, we have the parking lieu fee as well. So we do put money aside for parking improvements for a new business to come into our cities.
Okay.
If I could just add one thing, the whole idea of things being disjointed and sort of unplanned, it makes sense. I agree with everyone's point on that. However, I kind of see that in a similar way that, we're doing like bike lanes. I mean, a lot of people ask us, well, why is there a bike lane along Rosemead Boulevard? The moment you hit Rosemead,
right,
there's no more bike lane. The moment you go north into unincorporated, there's no more bike lane. But the whole idea is that every city is going to be moving at a different pace. And the idea is to create a regional network. So we just happen to be in a position to be able to put one piece of that puzzle in first. And we know that, along Rosemead Boulevard, in the area near Whittier Narrows, the county and the city of El Monte and South El Monte are also planning similar improvements using our Rosemead Boulevard as a model. So that's another piece that might get put in. And then the missing piece would be the city of Rosemead. So I see it analogous to that, although, I do see the point, especially Councilmember Fish pointing out, your neighbors have new houses, but they don't have sidewalks. So I would be concerned about the consistency in the application of it.
And I agree with you as far as being consistent. The issue I'm having is that no matter how consistent you're going to try to make it, the resident can pay a fee and not be consistent. So really, there is no consistency.
Well, no, the whole point is you pay a fee because at some point the city will do the entire block.
That doesn't sound what it sounds like to me. It sounds like to me that if you don't want a sidewalk, you can pay.
No, I don't know if there's a fee that you can pay not to do the sidewalk.
No,
at
there
this
wouldn't be a
point.
fee that you would be,
There's-
say, to not do something. It
There's
would be the
only like,
intent.
a fee not to repave the street.
Correct.
That I know. That's why I'm saying that I don't have a definitive answer to the sidewalk question, because I know we have examples of regarding repavement of the asphalt pavement. We do pay, you have a choice of pay a fee. But not putting in sidewalk, I don't think that is something that we've been allowing. I don't know why your neighbors was not allowed to do so. I mean, I look at a Google aerial map here. This is a very long block. I mean, there are at least 5 or 6 properties that already have the sidewalk put in. So it's another piece to that. Now, we stop this exercise that we've been, I guess, stopping and enforcing, then there'll be more missing pieces. So I would suggest if we want to have a policy discussion, we can, but I don't know, we should hold up one project just because of that, because they need to finish, the homeowner needs to finish their project, and this, I don't know whether it's fair to hold this up just because we need to have a policy decision that they were not responsible for,
Right.
or the lack thereof, they're not responsible for. I think we should just move on and look at this as a case, knowing that we've been practicing as a city to require new property owners to put in sidewalks if they have not been there. And then if you can also look, there are other areas, as you can see, that already have the sidewalk on both sides of the street. So that's in here, the houses over here, they got patchwork that already have sidewalks.
That's a good way of looking at it,
Yeah.
it's patchwork.
Yeah, so, any other
Well,
comment,
yeah, I
questions?
think that's a good argument
Yeah.
if we had been consistent, but
Yeah.
clearly we have not.
Right.
So it's, you know,
I
it's unfortunate that we make these on a piecemeal basis, it seems like. And I would feel more comfortable if we had a stated definitive policy. And I have no problem, and I certainly, personally, I'm in favor of sidewalks. I think they add a lot of good things, people right away, and I mean, you know, obviously in this particular area, it's kind of weird because you're walking on a sidewalk, then you gotta go back out on the street, then you go back on the sidewalk. I've seen a lot of those areas. I don't know, I mean, it seems to me that you're right, we need to have that policy decision at some point in time, because otherwise it's gonna continue on that way, and
Right,
that's
absolutely.
not good.
Yeah.
But again, we have a matter here before us tonight, and, is there some way that I mean, I don't know what the status of this construction is, but I mean, I don't know how long it will take us to put together that policy discussion, but, is it a requirement that we move on this tonight for them, or is it something that can be delayed 30 days? I don't know.
Yeah. Or it could be, it's just a matter of clarification by staff whether or not we're consistently applying this rule to all new construction. I think Councilmember Fish brought up an exception, but as far as I know, we've been doing that all along, so maybe that's just a question from staff, whether or not we've been consistently, at least the last couple of years with our new planning staff, whether or not we've been consistently
Yeah,
been
unfortunately,
applying that.
we don't have anybody from planning here, do we,
So,
tonight?
yeah,
So maybe they could answer that for us.
right. Okay, any other questions from City Council before we open up for the public hearing itself? Okay. At this point, I'd like to open up the public hearing, and I'll ask if Mr. and Keller, who submitted come up, please.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Keller.
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Mark Anklar, and in 2013, well, just to give you a little background why I'm even here and bringing this up.
Pull that up a little bit higher, so I.
Yeah, in
there you go.
2013, I was invited and honored to be on the city formed an ad hoc committee to rewrite the city's tree ordinance. And I was actually invited by Ms. Burrows to sit on that committee. And I was honored to do so, and it was a good experience for me. And I'm thankful for that. So getting to the point here, I have seen a number of, just to get right to the heart of the matter, first of all, I want to address Mr. Mann's point he brought up about ADA requirements of having sidewalks on streets, and I appreciate that, because my wife's she uses a wheelchair and needs sidewalks and stuff like that. But on Muscatel, the entire length of Muscatel has an existing sidewalk on the west side of the street currently. So if someone wants to walk on a sidewalk on that street, it's there. So it's not really imperative that this property, get that. And even if it did, it would basically be a sidewalk to nowhere. There's two properties to the south that have them. But other than that, you got to get back in the street. So you're better off staying on the other side of the street if you want to walk on a sidewalk. And the other point I wanted to bring up was I've seen a number, quite a large number of new developments, all recent, within the last year or two, where the sidewalk, where the house went in, you know, property was redeveloped, and no sidewalk was put in. Some get them, some don't. A lot don't. So there are exceptions being made now, and I would request that an exception be made for this property now, because these are two big, beautiful trees that are providing shade and, you know, a lot of beauty to our neighborhood. And I'd appreciate it if an exception could be made this time for these two trees for this property. And I was informed at Public Works today, or at the Planning Department, that there is an in lieu fee that a developer can pay. I know that you guys were talking about that. Instead of paying for, instead of the developer, you know, paying for a sidewalk to be installed. So maybe they could use that as an alternative at this time. So at the very least, I'd appreciate some more discussion before, you know, the city's allowed to remove these two trees now, these two healthy, beautiful trees. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nkell, I have a question for you. Yeah. So you were saying that we should take an exception to requiring sidewalk to go on the east side of Muscatel, and even though the sidewalk would be disjointed. Now, you are not suggesting, I guess, to put the sidewalk on private property, right? So you just are suggesting we just skip the sidewalk and then at some future juncture, bring it back and when we're doing the installing sidewalk.
Well, okay, possibly.
At some point in time, we will have to put in the sidewalk, though.
Okay, yeah, I don't see that as being imperative now. Maybe in the
Okay.
future at some point, I wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Right.
But at this time, because there's two beautiful, healthy trees there, let's just consider it not worthy of it at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there have been other new developments that I've observed in different residential areas where a new house went in and sidewalks were not installed. So, you know, some get them, some don't. So it's not a universal principle at this time.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
My wife and I would just like it if these trees could stay. So thank you.
Do you live in this area? Do you live in the area?
Yes, we live near the dairy, actually.
Okay. All right. Do you like walk this area or something?
Where
the trees are?
Well, I drive it regularly. My wife and I use Muscatel quite a bit, going to and from Pasadena.
All right. Great, thank you.
And there's actually a number of large trees on that side of Muscatel. A lot of sycamores on that side where there aren't any sidewalks. I mean, big mature trees. And it just provides a nice kind of a forested feel, which you don't see in too many areas of Temple City anymore because of all the tree removals. But anyway, and so we appreciate that, and these two trees are a part of that. So
Okay, thank you.
that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we want to hear from the homeowner.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
Really quickly. If we were to approve not having the trees removed,
Right.
would the homeowner have to pay that fee? Or the developer have to pay that additional in lieu fee to not have a sidewalk?
Assuming we do have such
I'm
a
just saying,
policy.
I'm just saying, because that kind of sounds.
Assuming we do have such a policy, I imagine so. I think that's.
Is that true?
Can you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
If we do decide that we're going to put, that we can leave the trees, that they can leave the trees, will they have to pay the additional in lieu fee of not having a sidewalk?
If it's not a condition of approval at that point, I'd have to clarify that, because if it's not a condition of approval, then you can't ask for a fee associated with it, but I can clarify that.
I know it's getting a little more complicated than.
Well, the condition of approval right now is a staff level condition of approval.
Correct.
It didn't, it's assuming it wasn't, conditional use permit's not required for a single family home. So it would be staff level, so I don't see that would be a hurdle for us
No.
to do that. But the question is really whether or not we do have an in lieu fee or not. 'Cause
Right.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
I'm-
We do have,
I'm
we do
hearing
have
we
an in lieu
do.
fee, that's
For
the-
sidewalk, we do.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
we
I
do.
suppose.
We do have a fee, so, but
Yeah, so maybe perhaps we can ask the homeowner to come up and see if they have an issue with keeping the tree and not putting the sidewalk and paying an in lieu fee,
To a
so.
certain level.
So,
do we know how much the fee is?
I don't know, 1,500 or something like that. Please state your name. You are Mr.
Bruce Wee.
Right.
The problem that we're having right now is the removal of the tree.
Right.
Because it's already has been planned already. So we are waiting for the plan to be given to us so that we can move on with our construction.
Do the trees interfere with the construction?
Yes,
In what way?
because it's right on the sidewalk. One of the
There's no
trees
sidewalk there.
It's right on the curb.
on a curb,
Okay.
just next to the sidewalk. So it makes it very difficult
that picture
for
again?
cars to go in.
So in other words, it's interfering with the driveway.
We are afraid that it will, in the future, get interfered with the oncoming
Are you
cars.
replacing that driveway there on the right, or is that gonna be, is there, it looks like that's an existing driveway, is that going to be replaced?
It's already been lifted up slightly already.
So there is some lift on the driveway?
Yes, yes.
Okay. We didn't hear that.
Yeah, there is some,
I didn't hear that
some,
either. Is that true or no?
All right, we'll assume it's true.
That's
I don't have any
okay.
reason to doubt you.
Uh-huh.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, so we're just getting consent from you guys to approve it and let us go on with the construction.
Is the, I have a question, is your driveway at the same location or is it wider?
It will be getting wider.
It's getting wider?
Yeah, a little bit wider,
Okay. So it's moving towards the tree?
moving towards, yes.
Well, I'm concerned with putting new driveway that, you know, for the
Well, yeah,
health of the tree.
it looks like it's a single, was it a single driveway before? Just a single car driveway?
Yes, before was a single.
And you just, they want to make it clear. Okay,
And
thank you.
also, I would like to address that we are paying the money to build the sidewalk for everybody can use it, not just like for our own purpose. You know, we just want to build it so everybody can use it, you know. The next will have it, so when we just go ahead and continue to make it, you know, nicer. Just like, you know, we're paying like $20,000 extra for that.
Okay.
You didn't live in the previous home, you bought the
We
property?
bought the lot, yes.
You just bought the lot and now you're redoing it? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's a single car driveway right now, so it's, yeah, it's a single car
Yeah.
driveway.
And I'm afraid the tree is getting bigger when the wind was blowing, because right now it's like two-story over there right now, not like a one-story, it's right now going to be two-story
Okay.
house over there. And I'm afraid that the wind might, you know, hit the wood somehow, you know?
Okay.
So maybe that's another issue too.
So it's not a matter of cost, but actually, it's not feasible for you to put in your driveway. And I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And your plan was approved, that, because I can see that your construction is.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
all,
we are
so,
only 1 month away now to get it done.
okay, all right.
Actually, to follow up on that, you're saying the approved plan shows the sidewalk?
I'm
Yes.
pretty
The
sure.
approved plan shows the sidewalk? Okay,
Because they wouldn't have gone this far without having the site plan approved.
okay.
And then because building permit is continue having the site plan approved.
Right.
And then the grading plan also approved, so the homeowner had actually acted, as per.
Exactly.
So would they have
permitted.
paid, did you pay a fee to have the trees removed?
Of course, we have to pay on our fee, yes. We have not cut it yet. So that's why we need your approval to have it cut. So then we, on our own fees.
No, I don't mean your own fee,
On
but,
our expenses as a homeowner.
We are building and we are cutting the tree, we pay for all
They're
expenses.
paying for the removal of the tree.
And the
not
city
the
doesn't
Right,
pay
I
anything.
understand that. No, I understand that. But like Councilmember Fish said, the people who put in the house paid a fee to not have the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm
However-
not sure about that.
However, we just discussed because they couldn't put in their driveway if, to leaving the trees would not allow them to finish their project because their driveway would depend on removing at least one of the trees. Because we can see from pictures, really narrow.
But that's only one of the trees.
Yeah, one of the trees, yeah.
I don't-
But then
I'm
again, the
looking-
sidewalk is another
I'm
issue.
looking at the reasons for the removal of public trees, and I don't see anything that would require a public tree to be removed so that someone can widen their driveway.
Well,
I do see one that says causing excessive damage to curbs, gutters, sidewalks, or driveways, but other than the testimony I've heard from the homeowner, that's the first I've heard that these trees are causing damage to a driveway.
Well, the sole reason that we have this item, or we were requested to remove the trees, was because one of the conditions of approval for their development was a sidewalk. And the trees cannot remain if a sidewalk is put in. So that's the sole reason why we were requested to
number
look at
5.
removing the trees. Had nothing to do with curb or gutter or driveway impact. It was only because one of the conditions of approval for their project was the installation of a sidewalk.
Okay. All right, any more questions for the homeowners? Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I think there are a couple of speaker requests here, and one is Mr. Riddell.
Yes, Franklin Riddell, 6035 North Bartlett, and our home is the next street over, on a narrow street at that, much narrower than Oak, than Muscatel.
Yeah.
Once again, also across from Avon, which is a narrow street, and there's two streets going east from Muscatel are also narrow streets. Streets that have no room for sidewalks, which we've already been forced it down our throat on one of the homes on Bartlett. So and if you look north, with the north picture that we were seeing, I saw no trees on the other side of the street. I want the trees. I want the beauty that they offer, the color that they offer, the greens that they offer. CO2 is needed in the area, despite what we may hear otherwise. So coming from a florist family, where we appreciate all this type of thing, I can't see speaking any other way. I think if the city wants to develop certain plans, then we need to look at all the streets, the whole structure. We've always had a bedroom community, and we're slowly but surely as I see it, saying, well, do we want to be Pasadena? Do we want to be South Pasadena? Or do we still want to be Temple City? Those decisions I see changing. And maybe we do, maybe we don't. But I think this is a consideration. Yes, I have friends who say, no, I won't come to your area because you don't have sidewalks. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I'm not getting any younger, and I still walk the streets. So, when I'm often made a public object as a pedestrian to see if we can't hit you. And the people who make U-turns in the middle of streets, I wish they'd go away, but they still do it, even though it's against the law. So, but I just wanted to voice those few items. I knew one of the city council members about it getting this level, well, it had to get to this level to get the approval that they needed to move on. So, me, I understood all that. But too many of the trees are going. They need to be saved. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roda. Mr. Stafford. Do you?
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist, council members, I've heard you all talk, and one thing that I agree with Councilmember Fish is we need a policy on this. There's no policies. And I think it's very hard to make a decision without a standing policy. I'd like to see the city manager come back with something that everybody can get together on and have a policy on this. You know, it's real hard to make a decision. I'm sitting there listening to everybody, and yeah, the sidewalk should probably be there, but, you know, to make an exception on this, I think it's a good idea because we don't have a policy. Delaying it it's going to take time to set up a policy. I think to come up with an exception in this is a good idea, and I don't think, again, delaying it is going to do any good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the city council on this item? Please come on up, Mr. Scottudo.
I'm looking at this and I'm reminded of El
Yes.
Monte Avenue where I live.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 houses on my street right now, and we all own 4 feet from the curb.
Right.
Everybody else on the street has dedicated property because back in the 80s, we were not allowed to get building permits unless we gave the property to the city.
Right.
I chose to go to court, and I refused to dedicate, and I won my court case. Actually, I didn't win. There were 2 cases that came from the appellate court and went to the Supreme Court. One was LA County Flood Control versus First Evangelistic Church. The other one was Nolan versus the California Coastal Commission. And in both those cases, the Supreme Court combined them and ruled that you have the authority to take the land, but to make me give it to you is extortion. And now, I heard the man talk about his policy, but on one side of El Monte Avenue, there are no sidewalks. On the other side of El Monte Avenue, there's some houses don't have sidewalks. I have a 2-foot sidewalk. You own 4 foot from the curb. So you're not going to come up with a policy that's going to fit everybody, because I'm willing to give you a foot of my property. I'm not willing to give you 8 feet. I'm willing to give you a foot so you can put in a 5-foot sidewalk and be ADA compliant. But to put up a blanket policy, your city isn't built that way. And you can't have a policy that's, and I don't want to live in a neighborhood where everybody looks the same. I want my individuality. These people, if they don't want their trees, it's their property, and they're building on it, they should be allowed to get rid of it. If it's that man's property and it's his tree, he should be allowed to keep it. But I don't want a blanket policy. We incorporated it as Temple City so that we could come before our city council and plead our case and have it decided on an individual basis. And that's what I want from my city. I want this to be an individual basis. And like I said, the diversity in this city, you drive any one of these streets, you're going to find streets without sidewalks, you're going to find streets with a 4-foot parkway and a 5-foot sidewalk, and you're going to find houses that have a 2-foot sidewalk.
Correct.
My sidewalk should have been repaired many years ago, and I've offered to give the city 5 feet. They want 8 feet for a total of 12 feet. I'm not going to give it to them. We'll go to court on it again. But this is my individuality.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, please come on up. Please state your name.
My name is Dominic Kwan. I'm from St. Gabriel. I'm not from Temple City. In fact, I appreciate what he just said, and I sit here almost 2 hours today. It's the first time I speak in front of the council, any council. I just retired from community colleges, and I was an IT manager. Somehow, I just want to share my experience. We follow rules in computer. Something has been set, followed by the others. And a lot of people don't like it in the school district, you know. Whenever you make a policy, they don't like it. However, as a council, as a worker, as a staff, I was classified staff. And we have for our case, will be student. For this case, will be the developer. My view is the developer is following all the rules, all the suggestions, all the recommendations from the city. They even get approval. And yes, I have personal preference for anything. I love what I want, and I don't mind. However, the issue is someone spend money. We are not talking about $10,000. We are talking about $1 million to do something, try to earn a buck, right? And now is the time the project is being holding up because of personal preference or because of some future unclearance. And I feel, and also I do respect the decision from the staff because they have real good experience in any development project. And they approve it, and I cannot accept the thought like, oh, they may be wrong, but if they were wrong, what happened to the others before? Most important, my issue is I feel like someone follow the code, follow the rules, get approval, and now there's hiccup right there. It's not fair. It's a punishment to the developer. In addition, we talk about the future policy, yes, talk about the future. Whatever we make, it takes time. But now, time is the essence. Money is on the, developer does not come with all the money. They come with their life. They try to earn a dollar only. They are not coming here to hijack anything. So it's critical to make a decision on that part. And I heard about councilmen say, 30 days, whatever. I say, God, another 30 days. I mean.
Do you have a point?
My point is, please consider that. Consider all the issue they have, and consider the way they did. They follow the rules. They follow the code, and any adjustment of the code in the future is the future. Now let's take care of this project to make a decision, please. And I love the idea, like personal, what I like my property be or whatever. But this is what my comment, simple like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I close public comments, public hearing. And time for council, any further council comments? Even though we've talked for a long time.
Am I going to start?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. I'll
Yes,
try to make,
Memphis.
I'll try to make this quick. First of all, I do think that we do have to go back and look at this policy. I don't think it's going to be an easy decision today. There's going to be some kind of, I'm sure there's going to be some disagreement. I don't want to hold up this project. I do believe that the owners have followed all the rules. They were under the impression that there was going to be a sidewalk there. I'm not really sure if we maybe should have told them that, but that's what they were planning on. I personally would not want to have the trees removed because I like the trees. But with this particular project, I believe that we have to make a decision tonight. In the future, again, if we want to look at these policies, change them, I really had no idea there was an in lieu fee. That was not in any of our paperwork. I don't think any of us knew that existed. So that, really kind of changed my mind on a lot of things. So I would have to vote to have the trees removed.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Fish, Councilmember Mann.
Sure, I'll keep it short too. First of all, I do appreciate Mr. Encalar's comments on the trees along Muscatel. I live around the area, so I walk that street every other day, basically.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sir, I'm sorry that we have like closed public comment, so.
And so he noted that there are other mature trees along Muscatel which are huge, and they are definitely within the public right-of-way. So I would be very concerned if this sort of domino effect and, you know, all these large, beautiful trees are removed along Muscatel. However, in this case, I think, you know, staff has looked at this, you know, obviously planning staff has looked at it. There's an approved set of plans. Our Parks and Rec staff and commission has also looked at it. Our arborist has looked at it. So there's a lot of expertise that's going behind this decision. And I think the only reason we're looking at this now is because there's an appeal. Otherwise, I would think this is a perfunctory item. If, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. So, yeah, so I think above all, as Councilmember Fish stated, the property owner has followed the rules. They have an approved set of plans. They want the sidewalk. It's not like we're forcing the sidewalk on them. I think it would be a different case if we were. So I would say, I also agree with Councilmember Fish that we should bring this policy back on a future item for discussion, just so we all have a better understanding of it. So I'm sure this is not the last case that's going to involve tree removal along public right-of-way. So I would be in favor of upholding staff and our commission's decision to remove the trees.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Chavez?
Thank you, Mayor Yu. This is what you would call a non-perfunctory, right? Is that? Since that's the word of the day.
That's a new word for it.
Wait, I know you do have to be careful saying that word. Well, I kind of agree with my colleagues thus far. You know, in going back and forth on this and looking and hearing the testimony this evening, you know, appreciate you guys coming out and speaking your minds on this, because it does help us to make those decisions. But for me, you know, it's one of those deals where you're correct, that is, staff did approve the sidewalk. The owners relied on this information. They began the construction, whether it's right or wrong, whether we should take trees down or not. I think that's a larger discussion for some point in time, but we have to address this issue as it is before us right now. And I think that, you know, and staff, of course, didn't just do this unilaterally. This is certainly based on decisions and direction by not only our GPAC, but our Planning Commission and our City Council. And it only came to light because now it's here before us. So I don't know that we don't have a policy. I do agree that we certainly don't apply it consistently. I think that's been shown tonight, that we have not. And perhaps that's something we need to work on. But I think that's for another day. You know, I think staff has performed their due diligence. I think they've tried to mitigate the situation as much as possible. Yes, they're asking to take 2 trees down, but they are putting 1 back. Hopefully, and of course we have no control over this, that the homeowners will plant additional trees and plants on their property. But, you know, that remains to be seen. So I'm, at this point, unless I hear anything compelling, I'm inclined to uphold the decision of our Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure. Couple of things. As much as I dislike having the trees removed, I am I reminded myself that we had an appeal regarding tree removal for a tree that was in front of a door. And it wasn't, in my opinion at that time, which I felt was as substantial a reason as this is. And yet we went along and gave the homeowner permission to remove a tree that had been there for quite some time, and they were going to replace it. So in all fairness to this case, until we decide that we come up with some better process to handle situations like this, I think it would be extremely unfair to the owners to deny them removing of the tree when the city gave them approval, a condition of approval. So maybe, and I'm just throwing this out, maybe there's a fault in the appeal process for tree removals from a project, a development that is already at this place in time that was given a condition of approval. This seems to me like a lot of stress for the homeowners and the people that are working on this project because there's not a better process possibly in place. And I think it's not until sometimes you have things such as this that you realize that you need possibly a better process. And I think that's where we're at with this. And I so appreciate Mark's, concern of the trees. And I too, hate to see those trees go. And yet I feel like I'm not comfortable with the knowledge that I had regarding sidewalks and development, because I'm like, well, I never recall any conversation that I've had, and I've been here 8 years, that I even knew that that was in place. Maybe that's because we don't go over every single thing that the planning department does, but to me, this is a substantial thing, and I think we as a council should be aware of these type of things. And shame on me for not asking beforehand, but I think going forward, we need to take a look at, if that's the plan, that we want sidewalks, and I would love them all through the city, then I should at least be aware of that that was a vision for our city, and I didn't feel like I was tonight. But I'm, in agreement that the homeowners need to move forward. They need to be able to remove the trees based on the process we've had in place. It's only fair up to this point. Going forward, I hope we can make decisions that are based more on what we decide we want to do in this city.
Thank you. And I do agree with my colleagues on the council. I think the primary driver that I agree that we should uphold the Planning Commission's decision is that the homeowner had follow-up process, like the mayor had pro tem had stated so eloquently. They follow all the permitting, planning, and they now plan a project. And now we really cannot tell them to go back, because it's really our process that we have approved. Now, I'm not sure whether we don't have a policy regarding sidewalks, but I think it's worth bringing back for the council, maybe even a study session, just to kind of go over when we require, when we don't require, and when it's maybe the city attorney can chime in, when it's in lieu fee, when it's not in lieu fee, and what's the legal basis and all that, so that at least we all understand what we are requiring as a city and why there are certain exceptions. And we do have in lieu fee when it's a time that we actually will pave up and down a certain block, that kind of a thing. Now, I agree with that we need to provide access. I think this one does meet the tree policy number 5 there, and then also, I also believe they can be mitigated by replacing certain trees. And I don't know, I forgot to ask the homeowner if they actually have a landscape architect for the project. Most new ones do. You don't need to answer, by the way. So I believe all new projects today have a landscape architect. So I'm pretty sure they have good landscape design. Because actually that was one of the things that when we were on the planning commission, we encouraged that by giving an incentive to homeowner if they actually do have a licensed landscape architect to prepare their plans. So, I would encourage, like Councilmember Chavez suggested, I would encourage the homeowner to plant additional trees. But I do want to thank Mr. Mark and Keller for bringing this issue to us, even though we are actually not, I guess, accepting the appeal, but I think you brought to us an important policy issue that we might have, we need to strengthen, so we thank you for that, and thank everybody for explaining your opinion. So, with that, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor Yu, I would make a motion that we uphold the Parks and Recreation Commission's decision to remove the 2 Siberian elm trees and also plant a new tree as recommended by staff.
A second?
It's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes. So, so we move on to the next item. This is a new business. This item is a discussion of the Public Arts Commission.
Mayor Yu, members of the council, at your last meeting, you provided direction to staff to return with an item regarding the discussion of the current status of the Public Arts Commission. What we've provided with you is a history of the Public Arts Commission since its inception and since it was an advisory and a ad hoc committee.
You guys want to take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, can we?
Yeah. Why don't you, it's been a long night. Why don't we take a 5-10 minute recess and we'll come back? And sorry for interrupting.
Perfect.
I think we all need to. Let's reconvene. Back on this item 10A, Mr. City Manager, you are giving the introduction on
Yes.
Public Arts Commission.
Thank you, Mayor Yu and members of the council. As I stated earlier, at your last council meeting, the council asked for a report back on the Public Art Commission. What we've provided is a background, and the city clerk has provided a background on the history of the Public Arts Commission, its many iterations over the last few years since 2011. We have not been meeting. We've had some staff transitions in the last 6 months related to the staffing of the commission. You have before you the ordinance that you adopted in 2012, which delineates out the major components of the ordinance: Arts and Public Places Program, the Public Arts Fund, which is a separate fund on its own, the Annual Arts Plan, and the commission itself and the protocols related to that. You have many choices on how you can address commissions, and some of those are outlined for you as a matter of discussion. And also, too, the Public Art Commission does adopt an annual plan. The last one was adopted in October of 2015. That's discussed in some level of detail, and as is the ordinance as well. Staff is here for any questions that you may have, and
Any questions for Mr. City Manager?
I have a question. Now, it appears that commission has not met primarily due to the, as you say, the staff transitions. What is going to happen in the foreseeable future that will change in that regard? Or do we have a plan that we're going to move towards?
sure, as you know, we've just hired a management analyst recently in my area with the assistant to the city manager. There's some transitions with some staffing as well. So I would anticipate in the next few months we'll have an idea between myself, Mr. Forbes, an idea of where some staff could be provided to provide some staff report to this type of function. Whatever the council decides to do with this function, there will have to be some level of staff support. And with the new management analyst positions, that gives us some flexibility to provide some of that staffing support.
But you say like in the next few months, that could be, let's see, this is almost July, or end of June. So technically, I mean, theoretically, we could go almost to the end of the year before we see anything.
I wouldn't want to go to the end of the year.
No, I wouldn't either, but I mean, do you hope, is there any hope that it'll be sooner than that?
I'm hoping in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. And I noticed that their big thing right now is to develop the Public Arts master plan or general, what do we call it, a general plan, I think?
Yeah, I actually staffed that meeting of the commission back in March, and
So they've begun work on that?
we have begun work on that, and then as staffing settles in, we'll be able to address that a little bit more aggressively.
And so that would be I guess fair to say that would be the next big project that they would tackle, or?
Yes.
Because there aren't really any, as far as I know, any art designs, anything that's on the table right now.
Nothing that's on the table. There's obviously, in the master plan, as the Public Art Commission has discussed it, would potentially address some of the maybe coming back to you as the council saying, here's maybe some annual things we'd like to do, but there isn't, there's not funding for a large project of the scope of what you saw with the art installations on Rosemead Boulevard or any of those kind of things.
Now, it's my understanding that with the new, our commissions are coming up for renewal and new members, that we have, how many are left on the commission right now? I believe there are only 2, but one has reapplied for that. That would make it 3?
Yeah, one incumbent commissioner did apply at the deadline.
Okay, so there were actually 3 positions up for appointment.
Correct.
But one of those is an incumbent.
Correct, and the incumbent reapplied.
Okay, and but then we only got, from the staff report, I understand we only got 2 applications on top of that, or was one of hers one of those applications?
One of hers was one of those at the deadline.
So we didn't even have enough to even fill the commission With the incoming application, is that correct?
At the time of the deadline, that is correct.
Okay.
There has been some interest afterwards, as the staff report indicates,
Okay.
but at the point of the deadline.
And what's
that's-
that interest? How many more applications did we get?
Peggy?
3 more on top of the 2 that we already, so a total of 5? Okay.
But they weren't submitted at the deadline.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for now, I think.
Or any other council members?
Yeah, one question to follow up with Councilmember Chavez. Can you explain the difference between the public art annual plan and the public art master plan?
Councilmember Mann, yes. The Public Art Master Plan, as the discussion with the commission was back in March, is some of the, for administrative guidelines, the maintenance of the current stock of public art, that would be captured in the master plan. The issues of how you would select artists, what locations you would select over time, that would be part of the public art master plan. The work plan would kind of be a derivative of that to say, okay, here's the 1 or 2 projects that we can tackle this year. There's a pretty aggressive approach in October, but it would be, it would kind of stem from the master plan. But they would be more of the guiding principles and ideas and major policies that the commission would recommend to the council and say, here's how we would select artists, here's how we would maintain the current art that we have, some of the administrative guidelines and maintenance schedules with that. Here are some potential locations that we would look at in terms of future public art installations.
So one's more of like a guiding document, and the other's more of an implementation of projects.
Yes, that's a good description.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mary, I just have one follow-up question. My understanding is that you gave notice to the existing members of the commission that we were going to be discussing this tonight. Is that correct?
Once the item became public, I did email the existing art commissioners to let them know.
Okay, and did they know, what did that notice include?
It included a copy of, it included a link to the copy of this
All right, so they
staff
knew
report.
So they knew
one of the
everything.
options was that maybe we were thinking of maybe ending the commission, right?
I didn't really.
What's in the report?
I just gave them a copy of the report.
Was notice given to any of the applicants to the commission?
No, I, as a courtesy to the existing commissioners, I gave
Okay.
them.
So just the, okay, unfortunately, I look out in the audience and I don't see anyone from that commission tonight.
I don't either.
Okay. All right.
I'm looking.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fish?
I have a question. I know you had said that they'd only met once because of staff transition. Were there actually any pending agenda items, or
From their annual plan that they adopted, there were a couple of outstanding items that they would have probably, I would suspect that they would have wanted to discuss and maybe have formalized a little bit more. I know the rotation of the mural, the installation of the backside of the Rosemead Boulevard directory monuments. But some of the things that were identified as part of their work plan for 2015, we did have the discussion as incorporating those into the master plan, that they seem to be a more appropriate place for those to be discussed, including, the administrative guidelines, the maintenance schedule for the public art. The discussion we had with the Public Art Commission was that may be more appropriate for the master plan.
So I just want to make it clear, so we should have had 6 meetings, but we only had 1, correct?
Since that time, yes.
Since the beginning of the year.
Since the beginning of this year, yes.
Last
Correct.
year, I don't think
Right,
we
right,
met
right.
very many times either, though.
They met a little bit more consistent when I did, and my former executive assistant did staff the commission for a period of time, and they were consistent with their meetings at that time.
And there's only 1 meeting a month, correct?
Under the existing ordinance,
Yeah.
that's what is stipulated.
Okay.
And when was last time you met?
March of this year.
Do you have more comments, Councilor Fish? Mayor Pro Tem?
Nope.
Well, we are supposed to give direction, so maybe I'll take a stab at it myself. You know, the going back to the beginning of the Arts Commission, it started out as a sort of a ad hoc advisory committee to the Rosemary Boulevard ad hoc, council ad hoc. You know, it was just folks attending our meetings and kind of expressing opinion, and that turned into an official ad hoc, and from then it turned into the Arts Commission. But I think it's of interest to note that at that time there was a project, and you know, it was the scope of the Art Commission is much better defined, and I think it was a good attempt by the city council and everybody involved, and I really appreciate all the art commissioners who actually participated. But seemingly, at least my observation has been that there, without funding, without a definite, a more definitive scope of work, we seems to have trouble getting a lot accomplished. And I was just wondering, maybe the format, you know, we being a smaller city, unlike some of the larger cities like Los Angeles City, like LA County, they do have a very, very active arts commission, but they do have a lot of staff, a lot of funding. And I was just thinking that perhaps when we have whether or not we should set up a project-specific ad hoc committees consisting of council members as well as appointed members from the public. I wonder if that will be more effective, because seemingly even though we have a couple of projects done, like the mural project, and it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to have somehow have a established way to get things done. And unlike the other commissions where they have certain protocols, certain things that do come before them, their tasks are a little bit more defined.
Although out of fairness, I think,
yeah,
our other commissions, it's a little different, I think, because we bring things to those commissions.
Right.
Whereas I think we rely more on the Art Commission to bring things to us.
Right.
And so it is a little different dynamics. I do agree with what you've said so far, though.
Yeah.
If you recall, it originally, I think it evolved into a commission from the standing committee, or standing ad hoc, or not standing, an ad hoc committee working with this so-called advisory group.
Exactly.
And that's how he then evolved into a commission. But you're exactly right. The reason for that was because we had some specific projects that we felt they could work on and then grow from there. Unfortunately, I think for a number of reasons, some of which are not included in the report, because we've had some, I guess the best way to say it is some drama over the last couple of years regarding this commission that we don't have with our other commissions.
Yeah.
You know, and just maybe the nature of things and how they were going about doing things. There's no blame, I think, to them at all.
No.
Because none of us really knew how was this going to go. We were kind of we're hoping that we would evolve into something like that, but it just hasn't, unfortunately. And not to, I know you were getting to a point, but I think the point you were getting to, and I would probably agree that maybe we need to restructure it or send it back to something that it was before rather than a full commission.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement here, and I think you're absolutely right in that the protocol of the other commissions is perhaps very different, where there are a set of rules established, and we bring discretionary items to them for, you know, either park and rec or planning or public safety. There are certain definitive role they need to play. And given us as a small city, very limited staff, very limited resources, and not having a lot of funding for it, I mean, I think it is probably perhaps a little unfair to our commissioners for them to be taking on the role of trying to find funding, trying to find the program. And art is such a personal thing as well.
Yes, it is.
That without a lot of guidance, I think it is very, very difficult. And, I really appreciate what we have done so far. And the folks on the advisory committees, folks on the commission so far. But I think it's just very difficult the way it's set up.
My observations is that they have been, and I was kind of closer to it because I was involved with the advisory committee.
Right.
With council member
Viscara.
Yeah. They seem to be, or at least in my opinion, they've been a little overwhelmed, I think, by the structure and the type of things. It didn't always play well into how they wanted to do things. They felt, I think, a little hampered by the rules and things that they needed to abide by. And so, I don't know, I just felt that they did a better job and had better ideas more of an informal group than a formal group. And, that's just my observation. I would hope that some of the members who are currently involved would continue on because they are good, intelligent, and they have great ideas. But I know that some of the people that were on the commission aren't on there anymore because they just couldn't make that commitment to the commission level, I think, where it was a more formal setting and they were bound by certain rules and things. And it just didn't, I don't know, for whatever reason, didn't play well.
Yeah.
And remember, if you recall,
Yes.
the three of us were on the council at the time, is that we went round and round, well, how should we set this up? Should it be a commission? Should it be this? And we went to look at all the different cities, and if you remember, it was just a whole bag of things. Some cities did it the commission way, some did it the advisory group way.
Right.
I mean, they were just all over the place. So that tells me there's no really right way. It's whatever is right for your city.
Right.
And I think for any number of reasons, whether it be staffing or whatever, maybe we've bit off more than we can chew at this point with what we're doing, and maybe we need to pull it back and let them get back to what they were intended to do, and that is to make recommendations and look at what possibilities of art. Because remember that the mural was done not as a commission, but as the advisory group.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they were able to do those types of things at that time.
Yeah, and the other part I want to point out, not just when we have had the Rosemead Boulevard project, it was pretty definitive. And at the time, the thinking was that as we go to the Las Tunas streetscape project, it's going to be another big project for the city. It's good to have the art component. But right now, that project, while we still have it, it's in a very, very different form. And I think I agree with you. I think it make more sense to have the art folks as a more of a advisory, maybe project specific, so it will help them make decisions rather than just leaving up to them to come with their own policies.
And if you recall, I think one of the advisory group was very happy doing what they were doing, I think.
Right.
But at some point, they got to a point where they felt that maybe we weren't really paying attention to them or considering.
Right.
I think if we go back to that thing, then we need to really work with them and make sure they understand that even though, let's say, they're not a commission, they're still important to us and to the city, and give them the feeling, not only the feeling, but know that we will work with them and we want them to do that job, and we will listen to them. And I don't have any doubt that the current council will do that, but we just need to remind ourselves that I think that's important to that type of a group setting. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comment,
No,
discussion?
I agree with Councilmember Chavez. I think when they were formed, it was when the Rosemead Boulevard project was coming up. We had I wasn't on there, but there was lots and lots of ideas of different projects that were maybe eventually going to be given to them. Again, we were looking at, in the future, you were looking at the Las Tunas project. And right now, just from the fact that they've only met one time in 6 months, whether it was because of staff or not. I just don't think we have enough to give them work-wise. I would much rather see it as an ad hoc or an advisory committee, so.
Would we, if we chose to go that route as a committee, back to an advisory committee, we need to, what would be the steps that, Mr. Murphy, that we would need to, first we have to see what we want, right? Eliminate or?
Sure, you would give us direction tonight to bring back an ordinance making the changes that you've discussed to eliminate the commission as a commission, keep the public arts program, and provide a new structure for either an advisory committee or a citizens advisory group that can be called upon by the council to provide help in different ways. That's something that certainly we can work with staff and the city manager and put that together and bring that back to you reasonably quickly.
And then staff can make a recommendation as to how we would form that committee, how many members, or would we use what we did initially?
Right, so I think what, we obviously would not want that to be codified. We want, the whole point of this seems to be to allow more flexibility.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think what staff would do is give you a recommendation once the ordinance is in place and the changes are made to make it a less formal structure. Staff can give you some ideas about how to reinitiate an advisory group.
Do we even need to codify this? And, perhaps what we need to bring back is to sunset the commission and just keep it a very loose, like most of our ad hoc committees. I guess the mayor at the time would appoint whoever on, and could that be, could be a mixture of council member as well as citizens, much like our audit committee.
Although I don't think the ad hoc would work. It has to be a standing committee because they're going to be meeting fairly regularly. So it would fall in the definition of a standing committee probably.
But my point, I guess, is that we don't necessarily have to bring back a structure and pass as an ordinance, do we?
Perhaps I wasn't clear enough, or I misspoke. We have an ordinance now that combines both your public arts program and the commission.
Right.
So we need to modify that to pull out all references to the commission. So
Right.
there will be an ordinance that comes back that modifies the code, takes out the formal commission,
Right.
and has some general language stating that the public arts program will continue to have citizen input through one process or another, and we can, as I said, work that up fairly quickly, and then we'll give you a lot of leeway to find what works best at different points in time. As you've said tonight, if you have a big project, you're going to need a greater number of people and more regular meetings. On a regular basis, you may not need as much, so we'll give you that leeway.
Can somebody from staff get some insight or input from the current members as to what they would like to see? I don't want to cut them out of the loop entirely. I think out of respect to them, they should be part of this process. I would like to, and that's why I was hoping someone would be here tonight to kind of let us know what they would like to see. Maybe they have some other ideas and how they feel they could work.
I think Brian has met with them.
I've met with them regarding the Public Arts Master Plan. I have not talked to them about this because I didn't receive any direction from the council
at the time, but.
Right, so no.
I mean, I would like to see that at least occur sometime between now and whenever we make our decision, and maybe that could be part of the recommendation when we bring this back
I think
again.
that's a great idea, yeah.
Or invite them to come again, or whatever it takes. But I just think, I don't want to cut them out of the loop entirely. And I certainly don't want to start over again. I think we need to keep some form of art group together. And that way it's in place and we can use it when the time comes that we will need them for. And so we don't have to just resurrect the whole thing again.
I'm happy to meet with, I've met with the Public Art Commission regarding the Public Art Master Plan. If that's the direction of the council tonight, I'm happy to meet with them individually to get to solicit their input.
Comments from, it seems like we have a consensus
I
here.
have one question. So I know at least the documents and ideas that the current commission has already generated, like the annual public arts annual plan, and that kind of set an outline of what they had hoped to achieve. How would that change? Would that just be completely revamped under the new structure? Does it get shelved or reprioritized? Like, what becomes of the work that has been done?
I think that's a good question. I think if it's direction of the council for tonight for me to go back and talk to the public arts existing commissioners, that would be maybe a question I would ask of them as well, and see where they'll go. Ultimately, all of this is driven by the council at the end of the day. So I'm sure, in all honesty and reality, I'm sure some of that would get reshuffled and reprioritized. But again, I think is what's been expressed by Councilmember Chavez, kind of hearing what they have to say about that. I think to give you some more input and some more insight is going to be important.
Yeah, because I know in that annual plan, it looks pretty ambitious. I mean, it has a lot of stuff on there. And so at least, I'm not an artist myself or very familiar with how an arts commission or advisory committee should be functioning. I just want a better understanding so that as a council, we can provide better direction, as to whether that document is still even important in the context of how we're going to be reorganizing. I agree with my colleagues that, and I think that's why, as the commissioner ad hoc group, when we were interviewing applicants, and then this kind of came up as part of the discussion, we thought, well, obviously we can't make the decision on our own, so we felt it was necessary to really have this discussion. And I want to thank Councilmember Chavez for actually taking that discussion further during the last meeting and actually suggesting this. So I think we're on the same page.
Right. Okay. Before we move further, I'd like to open for public comments, and anyone from the audience wants to address this issue? No? Okay. Public comments closed. Any further council comments? I'm not sure, actually, we do need a council motion on this one.
Have your direction.
Probably not, okay. So any further discussion
We don't need a
from
motion.
council? So I think you have enough directions from us, Mr.
Yes, Mayor.
City Manager and City Attorney, so, all right. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is communications. There is none. Update from Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, you members of the council, just considering the hour, just a couple quick updates. I emailed you this morning, our neighbors in the foothills are going through some tough times.
Right.
And with whatever capacity we have, and without compromising any of our resources, we did reach out to our neighbors to see if they needed any help. There hasn't been any formal requests through the mutual aid system to our neighbors affected by the fires, but I've been in contact with my colleagues over the day, and they're getting through. And LA County Fire Department is one of the experts in the country in terms of wildland fires and foothill fires, so they have the best and the brightest there to tackle what our neighbors are going through, so our sympathy to them.
We know they've had enough practice.
They certainly have.
Unfortunately.
There has been some calls as well to us about the concerns about blackouts and Edison. I believe you all received a email today from Josh Torres, who's, again, with all the issues we've had with public affairs, Josh seems to be extremely responsive. And we will try to do our best in coordinating, obviously, with Josh, Mr. Torres, and the team. Brian Haworth and Michael Forbes actually went to a Edison meeting today, and we will have hopefully some idea as much as in advance as they can if there are any blackouts, which there is conflicting information out there between.
I got a letter that in my neighborhood that Friday they were going to have
a planned outage.
All
Right.
day.
And there is some of that going on, but again.
Is that still on the books, or?
That, we are in contact with Edison about that particular outage as well.
I know some people have already expressed their concern because of the heat. I don't know that there's a good time during the summer to really do it, because let's say wait till next week, it's gonna be hotter next week, so.
And the reliability of our system is, as I've reported before, is pretty strong. It's not the top, it's not the bottom. It's about average for a utility, so at least it's showing that for right now in terms of unplanned outages throughout the city. So, and we did have one this weekend. I know it affected one council member for about 6 hours. And so we can, hopefully those are intermittent, but we're in contact with Edison. Lastly, I did participate, as I told you, as I told the council earlier, with this San Gabriel City Managers Association, a symposium that we have for all assistant city managers, department heads. And one of the issues that was brought up was about a senior master plan. And there was this one, there's a USC demographer. His name is Dal Myers. And he says, what you think about what's happening in your population, rethink it. And one of the things that he is pointing out, and which we're addressing, and which Director Burrows is addressing, is the graying of our population here, and how we have to address that. And how really, for both different generations, how for them to understand the different types of investments we need to make in that community, be it investments in our youth, as we do, and we met today about our youth committee, that all of those things really tie into each other and benefit each other from a cross-generational standpoint. So it's interesting, and one of the other interesting things that the demographer, Mr. Myers, brought up too is that the replacement, or how many people are actually having children, is actually decreasing in LA County. And LA County's, they always think that's the 13 million or 12 million population. According to Mr. Myers, it's highly likely that we will not reach that level. So it's an interesting shift that's happening. And the residual effect is how it affects our public, and that's why he was bringing up is how it affects our public services. So I will actually distribute one of his presentations to you so you can see some of that. So that's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next slide. Well, Mr. City Attorney, you have any updates?
Mr. Mayor, nothing tonight.
All right. And council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committees. I think there are a number of meetings. Well, we have
had one. I'll report out briefly on the audit standing committee. Mayor, you and I met with Director House and the city manager and the staff with our new auditors. If you recall, we approved the new auditors, what, a month or two ago, maybe?
Yeah.
And I can't remember their names now. Do you remember their names? I'm sorry.
A couple months ago.
No, but what are their names, the new firm?
Oh, Vavrinic.
Yeah.
VTD.
Yeah, so we met with the principals, and they kind of reviewed the proposed schedule. They've just completed their field work, and seems like a really bright firm, and I know staff is excited about working with them. So we'll have more to see as they get through their audit. So that's all I have.
All right. Great, thank you. Moving on to council members separate from the city manager's regular agenda. Councilmember Shevitz.
I don't know much. I know, you didn't mention that we have our park, concerts in the park tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
I figured you were gonna cover that, but just to remind everybody, we have our first concert in the park. We're all looking forward to that. And I just thought perhaps tonight I would ask Mayor Yu if he would consider maybe closing this meeting in memory of the victims in Orlando. You know, it's been tough, I know, and we've all read the reports. And, you know, we're thankful, I think, that we live in such a safe community, but, you know, you just never know. And it's just hopefully, you know, the great country that we live in, we'll figure it out one of these days and figure out how to stop these terrible tragedies from happening. But, you know, our heart goes out, of course, to all the victims and their families. So that's all I have.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Fish.
Well, I was going to say about concerts in the park. always looking forward to that. Starts on Wednesday. Also, the Chamber of Commerce is going to be having a mixer across the street at the Healthcare Partners at 4 o'clock. So if anybody wants to go to that before concerts, that would be great. And then I wanted to thank staff for our new budget. I know that's a lot of work. Thank you, Brian, and thank our financial department. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Min.
I just want to share briefly, this past Saturday, there was an event at the Temple City Library. We had 2 speakers who are, I guess they're motivational speakers. They go around raising mental health awareness around the San Gabriel Valley. And it was my first time really sitting through an entire session. It was very moving, and I want to thank Mr. Jambazian for also documenting that whole event, because if you get a chance, it's worth maybe clicking through some of the... There were 2 speakers. One, her name was Emily Wu Trung.
Is she dressed in green?
Yes.
Yes, I've met her. She's actually was Woman of the Year.
When Cindy Vance was.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
And she's great.
Yes, so it was my first time hearing her share all those stories, and another gentleman by the name of Rudy Caceres, he also shared, and very moving. It's a topic that unfortunately doesn't get as much attention as other issues, but I think we're seeing more and more of it. Ms. Wu Trung also did talk about, in particular, this issue as it relates to the Asian American community, because it's often a taboo subject. And so just raising that awareness and allowing that dialogue to occur, I think it's an important step. So I told her that I would perhaps talk with Mr. City Manager, as well as maybe ask my colleagues at a later time if there is something the city can do, maybe do an event, anything we can help to raise awareness. May is considered Mental Health Awareness Month, but we just passed it. So perhaps next year, well, there's something we can do.
Maybe for our health fair.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's
yeah,
not our
so
health fair,
it's a
but-
discussion that I just want to bring up to council, and if there's any ideas, perhaps we could work together to raise that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist.
Just one thing to bring to staff's attention is the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership is offering any member city the opportunity to have their own web page on their website. And so you can go on and, I brought the flyer, but it's in my car and I was at home.
Okay.
Or I would have brought it. But, so I'll bring it to you, Brian. It has all the information of how you go, where you go to set it up. But it's a great place, kind of if a commercial business is looking for something specific as far as demographics or retail space, they can go on to the Economic Partnership and put in the things that they're looking for, and then it filters, and if our city seems to be of interest to them, then they can look at all our demographics and see what's available in our city. So I think it's it's free, which is really nice, but it would be a great thing for our city to put up on their website. I went to the Library Commission meeting, and we visited the Compton Library, and it was really nice. What is Pat's last name for facilities?
McGee.
Pat McGee, who is the LA County facilities person for the libraries. He actually shared with the library commissioners that Temple City was one of the libraries that was going to be completely renovated. So it was really nice to hear it, that he shared that. And also, not too far from us, the Live Oak Library is actually going to be moving, and they're going to move to a completely renovated 4,000 square foot building in the city of Arcadia. It's not in the county. So that will be on the horizon also.
Wow.
That's very interesting. If the LIFO gone, does that expand our boundary of contribution? Maybe we can get more funding from the county? Actually, I'm still very curious how they allocate their property tax to the,
Well-
because we have such high property value, but now we still keep hearing they don't have enough money.
You
so-
know, what's also interesting is cities who have a high property tax and have a lot more money, like for the example, the city of Malibu and
You're right,
Manhattan
right.
Beach, are actually looking at maybe giving some of their funding to other cities.
Oh, wonderful.
And it would be up to, since they're city libraries, I mean, they're county libraries, but they worked really closely with the city to do the funding, that it might be just a new partnership, another source for cities such as ours to tap into. So
Yeah,
that's
we definitely should
on-
look into that, yeah.
That's on the horizon.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Just one thing, just want to thank the city manager and Ms. House. Well,
One more
she's
thing,
gone now.
and Greg
Yeah.
Murphy, welcome tonight. We should have said that earlier, but thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, great. Just to thank everyone for, working on the budget. It's important. It's a policy document that we have, so thank you very much for that. So, at this point, next item is reimbursement of expenses to city officials. There is none, and then now we recess to the successor agency. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Agency Member Chavez.
Here.
Agency Member Fish.
Here.
Agency Member Mann.
Here.
Vice Chair Sternquist.
Here.
Chairman Yu.
Here. Next item, consent calendar. All items may be approved in
Motion to
single
approve.
motion.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is approved. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, there's none. Communication, there is none. Public comments. I'll close public comments. Update from agency director, no. Agency council, none. Okay, and from agency members, none. And we will now adjourn and reconvene the city council. Next item is public comments, an item not listed. Okay, oh, yes, Mr. Jambasi.
I know the hour is late, and I will try to make my time used wisely, but I have two items.
Yeah.
You asked for public comments regarding public art, but I was going to bring it up anyway, but about 9 months to maybe a year ago, I came before you and asked you to take a look at the entrance sign on the east side of the city, because I've been in the city 62 years. That sign has been there at least 62 years, I think. It never has been changed. So it has to be getting.
Island?
The one on Baldwin and,
Yes.
Little island, yeah.
and Las Tunas, right?
Yes, at the little island, as
Yeah.
you said there. So I don't know if it's going to be an advisory committee, public arts, whatever it is, but I know at the time, I think the council kind of said, well, we'll make it a part of the Las Tunas redesign. Well, I don't know where that's going now, but I'd like to maybe have you reconsider it again and just do it as a separate project, a standing committee, just to get that done, because it would add so much, I think, to our city if we were to do that. My next item, since I have a minute and a half left, concerts tomorrow night. I'm personally excited about that. I think it's just great. And looking at the lineup that we have compared to other cities, it's remarkable that we can still do this. And thank you for funding it. I mean, it's amazing. People come from all over. I interviewed a couple maybe a year or two ago from Valencia that says there's no other concerts like Temple City, and that's why we come here, and they dance like crazy. So it's amazing. But the one thing that I would like to ask a favor of all five of you, just on a personal note, World War II veteran Dan Snell, he's going to be there tomorrow night with his wife, and it's their 72nd wedding anniversary. They got married when I was 3 months old. So, I mean, it is amazing to have a couple in our city that's been married 72 years. But if you're there tomorrow night, they'll be sitting right, usually if there's if I'm correct, they're right in back of that cement area, just to the south end of the pavilion. If you could just stop by and just wish them a happy anniversary, that would mean a lot to them. We don't have too many of these World War II veterans left in the city, so I would appreciate that. Their family roots go back to the Civil War.
Wow.
So it's amazing. But he's failing a little bit, and, you know, I don't know how much longer we're going to have with him. He's 94 now. So it would be good to just stop by and say.
He told me
hello.
he was going to be jumping out of the plane when he turns 100.
Yes, right. I don't think so.
I
hope
believe
not.
him.
But thank you.
I think we
very-
should, I think we should go one better, and that is, I know Kathy's still here, but maybe Debbie or somebody or whoever's there from council, unfortunately I won't be there, but maybe just announce it to the crowd. I'm sure a lot of people know him.
That would be nice.
You know,
I mean,
just
that would mean a lot
acknowledge,
to him.
his
And it would mean a
presence.
lot to me too, because, you know, we don't know how long we're going to have these people around,
Yeah,
so.
no, he's a good
but,
guy. Him and his wife are always there, same seats.
Yes,
Right
exactly.
in the middle.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So thank you very much.
Right, thank you. See there comments? No, hearing none, public comments closed. And like Councilmember Shaw was saying, we will adjourn in the memory of the victims of Orlando. What a horrible event, but I think the human spirit, you know, really comes through, even in that time of tragedy. So, oh, okay. So, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.